Welcome, friends, to a gentle journey through the shadows and mysteries of Minecraft. Tonight, we'll be exploring the full story of Herobrine, the ghostly legend who has haunted players' imaginations for more than a decade. For the next 3 hours, we'll wander through myths, stories, and whispers, all told in a soothing rhythm designed to help you relax, unwind, and drift off to sleep. If you enjoy dreamlike adventures like this, I'd love for you to join this cozy community of listeners. Please take a moment to subscribe. It helps the channel grow and ensures you never miss another bedtime story. And before we begin, I'd love to know, where are you watching from tonight? Share it in the comments. I find it magical to see how people from all around the world come together here, connected through story, comfort, and imagination. In the beginning, before Herobrine had a name, before stories of glowing eyes spread across forums and whispered through playgrounds, there was simply a game. Minecraft, in its earliest days, was a quiet experiment built by a developer named Marcus Persson, better known to the world as Notch. It was a game about blocks, about building and exploring, about surviving in a world of simple shapes and infinite landscapes. Players could place and remove cubes of earth, stone, and wood, shaping their own environments as if they were both architect and adventurer. The game had no detailed tutorial, no guiding hand. You were simply dropped into a strange, blocky landscape under a wide, pixelated sky. The sun moved across the horizon, shadows stretched, and when night fell, monsters crept out of the darkness. Zombies groaned, skeletons rattled, spiders scuttled, and the famous creepers hissed before bursting into explosions. But beyond those coded enemies, there was a deeper silence in the game, a loneliness that settled in, especially if you played alone. The sounds of Minecraft were sparse, the crunch of footsteps on gravel, the low moan of wind through caves, the occasional eerie background track that faded in and out with no warning. Many players describe the feeling of being watched, of not truly being alone in their blocky worlds. This atmosphere set the stage for the first whispers of something more, something unexplained. In those early years, around 2010, the internet community surrounding Minecraft was small but passionate. Players gathered on forums like the Minecraft Forum and Reddit to share creations, bugs, and discoveries. Screenshots of castles, pixel art, and sprawling mines filled the boards. But soon, mixed among the cheerful posts, were strange stories. Players spoke of odd shapes deep in the forests, pyramids of sand that no one had built, trees without leaves, tunnels stretching in straight lines with no explanation. At first, these were brushed off as quirks of the world generator, glitches, or tricks of memory. But when combined with the eerie feeling of being watched, they began to take on a different flavor. One day, a story surfaced. A player claimed that while exploring their single-player world, they caught a glimpse of a figure in the distance. It looked like the default Minecraft character model, known as Steve, but something was wrong. The eyes were empty, glowing white. The figure stood still, just beyond the fog. When the player tried to approach, the figure vanished. Later, the player found tunnels carved neatly through stone, 2 by 2 blocks wide, leading nowhere. Small pyramids of sand appeared on beaches, and leaves disappeared from trees. The world seemed touched by an unseen hand. The player posted their story online, and the community responded with both skepticism and fascination. Some dismissed it as a hoax, an edited screenshot, or a prank. Others swore they had seen the same thing, or at least felt something similar, the sense of being followed, of hearing footsteps behind them in caves where no mob could reach. Slowly, the legend began to take shape. The name Herobrine appeared. It was said to be the ghost of a miner, a haunting presence that roamed the code of Minecraft. The myth claimed he was the dead brother of Notch, somehow trapped in the game. His glowing eyes marked him as unnatural, a phantom who would alter worlds in small, unsettling ways, building cryptic structures, carving tunnels, watching silently from a distance. He never attacked directly, never made a sound. He was simply there, always just beyond reach, like a shadow in the corner of the screen. These early stories spread quickly. The simplicity of Minecraft's visuals made Herobrine more believable, because anything unexplained could be attributed to him. A tree missing its leaves? Herobrine. A chest moved from one corner of a room to another? Herobrine. A sudden feeling of dread in a dark cave? Surely it was Herobrine. The more players discussed it, the more sightings were reported. At this point, Herobrine had not appeared in the game's official code. He was not real in a technical sense, but in the minds of players, he was very real. Stories grew richer, each one adding a layer of detail: glowing eyes in the distance, pyramids of sand, torches in unexplored caves. Entire threads on forums became dedicated to hunting him, sharing screenshots, and debating whether he truly existed. This was the birth of a modern myth. Just as older generations had ghost stories told around campfires, Minecraft players now had Herobrine, a legend that grew from the silence of the game, the emptiness of its landscapes, and the collective imagination of its community. It was not just the story of a glitch or a hoax, but the story of how people create meaning when they feel mystery, how they share fear and wonder through storytelling. The earliest whispers of Herobrine were subtle. They were not polished videos or elaborate fan art. They were forum posts typed late at night, screenshots with unexplained figures, rumors traded between friends. They were born from loneliness in caves and forests, from the unsettling soundtrack of Minecraft's ambient noises, from the blank, staring eyes of a figure that might not have been there at all. In this way, the legend of Herobrine reflects something deeply human. We see patterns in randomness, faces in shadows, stories in silence. The blocky, infinite world of Minecraft became the perfect canvas for these instincts. Every glitch, every quirk of world generation, every eerie moment became part of the growing myth. And soon, what began as a single story would become a worldwide legend, shaping how millions of players experience the game. As you drift off to sleep tonight, think of those first players exploring their pixelated worlds in silence. The only sound, the crunch of footsteps, and the echo of dripping water in caves. Imagine the chill that ran down their spines when they thought they saw something move in the fog, something that looked like Steve, but with eyes that glowed white in the dark. Whether real or not, Herobrine was there in their imaginations, and once imagined, he could never be erased. And so, the myth began, not with proof, but with whispers, not with code, but with community. A figure standing silently at the edge of the fog, watching, waiting, glowing eyes, never blinking. By the time the first whispers of Herobrine reached the Minecraft forums, players were already primed for stories of mystery. The game was new, experimental, and vast, and there were still so many things that even experienced players didn't fully understand. It was this uncertainty that allowed the very first creepypasta the internet's form of a campfire ghost story to take hold. The earliest full story of Herobrine followed a pattern that felt both personal and believable. A player described creating a new world, expecting the usual trees, rolling hills, and animals. Everything seemed normal at first, until something odd appeared in the fog. A figure stood in the distance, blocky, humanoid, unmistakably using the Steve model. But there was no name tag above his head, and his eyes shone with an eerie glow, completely white, as if no pupils or irises existed. The player tried to approach, but the figure quickly disappeared. Later, strange structures began to appear. In caves, there were long, neatly carved tunnels, 2 blocks tall and 2 blocks wide, stretching far into the darkness with no torches to light them. Small sand pyramids rose on beaches, and groves of trees appeared stripped of their leaves, standing like skeletal hands against the horizon. The player knew they hadn't built any of these things, and yet there they were, scattered across the world. In the story, the player tried to contact others online, posting screenshots and asking if anyone else had seen the same thing. Replies came in from other users. Some claimed they too had spotted the figure with glowing eyes, watching silently from the distance. Others dismissed it as a hoax, an edited image. But then, according to the tale, something stranger happened. The player reported that after posting about Herobrine, their thread was deleted from the forum. When they tried to post again, the thread was removed almost instantly. Frustrated and suspicious, the player emailed Notch directly, asking about the mysterious figure. To their surprise, Notch supposedly replied with a short, cryptic message. Yes, I can confirm he is in the game, but only as a reminder of my brother. The story then explained that Notch's brother had passed away long ago, and that Herobrine was his ghost, somehow trapped inside the code of Minecraft, forever wandering the blocky world with empty eyes. This detail, the idea of Notch having a dead brother, was what gave the legend its first real anchor. It added a human connection, something both haunting and believable. Even though there was no truth to it, the idea resonated. The thought of a game's creator placing his lost sibling into the game, intentionally or otherwise, carried a weight that simple glitches could not. The post spread like wildfire. Players copied and pasted it, shared it on other forums, and whispered about it in chat rooms and school cafeterias. Soon, the first Herobrine creepypasta had taken on a life of its own. The story was retold countless times, often with small variations. Sometimes Herobrine was described as helpful, leaving behind torches in dark caves. Other times, he was malicious, stalking players and luring them into traps. But the core remained the same, a figure with glowing white eyes connected somehow to Notch's family, haunting the worlds of Minecraft. What made this tale so effective was its blend of the ordinary and the eerie. It began like any Minecraft adventure, with the player chopping trees and exploring caves, but gradually introduced unsettling details that built a sense of dread. The story didn't end with resolution or explanation. Instead, it concluded with mystery threads deleted, emails unanswered, the implication of a truth too big to reveal. It was the perfect recipe for a creepypasta. As more players encountered the story, they began to add their own experiences. Some swore they had screenshots of Herobrine appearing in their worlds. Others described how he would place random 2x2 tunnels or build strange structures just out of sight. A few claimed he would watch from a distance, never attacking, never speaking, always disappearing the moment they got too close. The legend grew in layers, each retelling reinforcing the idea that Herobrine was real, hiding somewhere in the game's code. The Minecraft community was still small enough at the time that stories like this spread quickly. A single post on the forums could be seen by thousands of players, sparking debates and investigations. Whole threads became dedicated to searching for Herobrine, sharing theories, and analyzing screenshots pixel by pixel. The atmosphere was electric, a mix of fear and excitement. Everyone wanted to know, was he real? The truth, of course, was that Herobrine never existed in any official version of Minecraft. Notch himself would later clarify, with humor, that he had no brother, and that Herobrine had never been part of the game's code. But by then, the myth had already taken root. In many ways, the denial only made the legend stronger. After all, wasn't that exactly what a developer would say if they wanted to keep something secret? The creepypasta format was perfect for Herobrine because it played into the imagination of players. The game's vast, lonely landscapes created fertile ground for fear. You could wander for hours without seeing another creature, hearing only the echo of your footsteps, a shadow in the fog, a sound in a cave, or a glitch in world generation could all become evidence of Herobrine's presence. The story was designed to linger, to make players wonder every time they logged in, is he watching me? By the end of that first year, Herobrine was no longer just a story. He was an icon of mystery, a shared legend whispered between players all over the world. The earliest creepypasta had done its work, transforming a single rumor into an enduring piece of gaming folklore. And so, as you drift further into this calm retelling, imagine the players of those early days, sitting alone in dimly lit rooms, staring at glowing screens, their hearts quickening as they thought they saw something move just beyond the fog. Imagine them rushing to forums to tell their stories, typing late into the night, hoping someone else had seen him too. And imagine the quiet thrill when others replied with, "Yes, I saw him. I know he's there." This is how legends are born, not in truth, but in stories shared, repeated, and believed. Herobrine was never in the code, but he was very much alive in the imaginations of players. And that, perhaps, made him more real than any block or mob in the game. When the first creepypasta about Herobrine began to circulate, it didn't take long for others to follow suit with their own testimonies. What made the legend grow so rapidly was the sheer number of people who began claiming they had personally encountered the mysterious figure. These sightings, often posted on forums and blogs, carried with them the energy of ghost stories shared around a fire. Some were shaky, some were elaborate, but all added to the mythos. In the sleepy quiet of late-night browsing, players would read these posts and feel a chill of recognition, as if Herobrine could step into their own worlds at any moment. One of the earliest and most repeated accounts involved players exploring deep caves. The natural caves of Minecraft were unsettling enough, long and winding with the occasional eerie sound echoing through the stone. Several players posted about discovering straight tunnels carved into the earth, perfectly uniform, 2 blocks tall and 2 blocks wide. These were unlike anything in the usual cave generation. Some of them stretched on for hundreds of blocks, ending abruptly or splitting at right angles. The posters insisted they hadn't mined them, and no one else had been in their world. What made these tunnels most unnerving was the claim that Herobrine had been spotted standing at the far end, motionless, watching with those blank white eyes before vanishing the moment the player moved closer. Other sightings took place above ground, often in familiar terrain that suddenly felt alien. Some players reported groves of trees stripped bare of leaves, their trunks standing like wooden skeletons. These barren groves seemed to appear overnight, without any logical cause. In one tale, a player claimed that they had logged out in a lush forest, only to log back in the next morning and find half the trees completely bare. At the edge of the grove, Herobrine supposedly stood in silence before disappearing into the fog. A particularly memorable sighting described small pyramids made of sand, perfectly formed with 4 triangular sides, rising out of beaches or deserts. Minecraft's natural generation sometimes created odd shapes, but these pyramids were too precise, too symmetrical. The players who reported them insisted that they hadn't built them and they hadn't seen them before. One post described how, after finding such a pyramid, the player climbed to the top and discovered a single red flower placed neatly on the highest block. They swore that Herobrine appeared briefly behind them before fading away, leaving nothing but the flower as proof. Screenshots began to accompany these stories, though many were grainy or suspiciously edited. One infamous image showed a figure in the distance, barely visible through the fog, with glowing white eyes faintly distinguishable. Another showed a player's base with a mysterious figure standing in a window, watching from inside a house that should have been empty. These images spread across forums, blogs, and eventually early video sharing platforms. Whether real, edited, or staged, they gave the legend a visual form that words alone could not provide. One of the most famous posts told of a player who noticed strange changes in their world every time they logged in. First, it was tunnels. Then, torches appeared in caves they hadn't explored. Next, whole hillsides were carved away, leaving sharp, unnatural cliffs. Eventually, their livestock began to disappear, one by one, until their pens stood empty. The player claimed that after days of confusion, they spotted Herobrine inside their house, standing perfectly still. They ran toward him, but he disappeared, leaving behind nothing but an open door. The account ended with the player saying they deleted the world entirely out of fear. Another set of sightings took place on multiplayer servers, which added a new layer of unease. Players reported Herobrine joining the server under blank or glitched names, appearing in chat for a moment, and then vanishing. Sometimes they swore he would appear in the distance, building odd constructions out of dirt or cobblestone before disappearing. On survival servers, where griefing was common, it was easy to dismiss such claims as pranks. But when multiple players on the same server claimed to see him simultaneously, the idea of Herobrine stalking multiplayer worlds took on a terrifying edge. These sightings were often posted with urgency, written in frantic tones as if the players had just witnessed something unexplainable. "He was right there," one forum post read, "just standing outside my window. I tried to take a screenshot, but the game froze, and when it unfroze, he was gone." Others described Herobrine as leaving cryptic signs, such as single blocks of cobblestone stacked in odd places, or perfectly square holes dug straight into the ground. The randomness of these details made the stories feel authentic. Who would invent something so peculiar? Skeptics on the forums were quick to point out how easy it was to fake screenshots or create strange structures by hand, yet the volume of claims made it difficult to dismiss outright. Even those who didn't believe often admitted to feeling uneasy while playing alone at night. The stories planted seeds of doubt, and doubt was enough to make the empty corners of caves or the thick fog of forests feel alive with unseen eyes. Over time, collections of sightings were gathered into long threads dedicated solely to Herobrine. Some players became self-styled investigators, cataloging the supposed signs of his presence: the tunnels, the pyramids, the leafless trees, the square holes. They would argue over which signs were most authentic and which were fabrications. The legend developed a kind of canon, a set of recurring motifs that defined what a true Herobrine sighting should include. It was during this period that the most well-known Herobrine hoaxes emerged, crafted with increasing sophistication. Some players modded their games to insert a Herobrine-like character, then recorded staged encounters. Others edited textures and used clever camera angles to produce convincing images. But even as the hoaxes grew, they only fueled the myth further. Each new video or screenshot, even if fake, gave players another reason to wonder. If so many people are creating stories about him, maybe there's some truth at the core. The atmosphere surrounding these sightings mirrored the way ghost stories evolve in folklore. Each account added something new, and soon no two sightings were exactly the same. Some described Herobrine as hostile, stalking players and setting traps. Others claimed he was neutral, watching silently but never attacking. A few even described him as helpful, leaving behind tools or lighting caves. The diversity of the stories made Herobrine feel like a real presence, with motives and moods that were difficult to predict. As these posts spread, they began to reach audiences outside of the core Minecraft forums. Blogs picked up the stories, recounting the sightings with breathless fascination. Early YouTube videos compiled the screenshots into eerie slideshows set to haunting music, presenting the sightings as evidence of a deeper mystery. The name Herobrine began to circulate beyond niche communities, becoming a recognizable word even to casual players. What made these sightings so powerful was the way they blurred the line between game and imagination. Minecraft's blocky, simple graphics left plenty of room for players to project their fears. A shadow in the fog, a glint of white in the distance, any small anomaly could be reinterpreted as Herobrine. Once you had heard the stories, it was almost impossible to play without scanning the horizon, wondering if he was just out of sight. And so, the famous sightings became the backbone of the legend. They were repeated, shared, and reshaped until they felt like collective memory rather than individual tales. A player who claimed to see Herobrine wasn't just telling a story, they were contributing to an evolving myth, one that spanned servers, continents, and years. In the quiet moments, when the only sounds in Minecraft were the rustle of leaves or the distant hiss of a cave, players would think back to those posts. They would remember the tunnels, the pyramids, the trees without leaves. They would glance into the fog and wonder, just for a moment, if those white eyes were staring back. As the legend of Herobrine spread across the forums, it was only a matter of time before the stories moved into video form. Screenshots had power, but a video could make the experience feel immediate, as though you were witnessing the haunting firsthand. This was the early age of YouTube, when gaming content was still finding its rhythm, and a spooky mystery was the perfect fuel for community curiosity. One of the earliest influential videos was a simple compilation of alleged Herobrine sightings. It featured screenshots from the forums, grainy and low resolution, set to ominous music. The creator added captions describing the encounters, drawing directly from the creepypasta: tunnels in caves, pyramids in deserts, trees stripped of leaves. The video had no flashy editing, but that was part of its charm. Its rough presentation gave it the feeling of a found artifact, something pulled from the depths of the internet rather than polished entertainment. Viewers watching late at night would feel the tension rise as each eerie image flashed across the screen, leaving them to wonder if the next one might hold proof of Herobrine's existence. Soon after, players began recording their own supposed encounters. These early videos were often shaky and pixelated, the kind of recordings you might expect from someone startled by what they saw. A common format was the Survival World Tour, where a player would record themselves walking through their world to showcase their builds, only for something unusual to appear in the background. In one of the most talked about examples, a YouTuber wandered through a village when, for a brief second, a figure with glowing white eyes could be seen on a distant hillside. The camera swiveled quickly. The player ran toward the spot, but when they arrived, there was nothing there. The video ended abruptly, leaving viewers unsettled. These videos quickly gained traction, often shared with titles like "Proof of Herobrine in Minecraft" or "I Saw Him Too." The comment sections were filled with debates. some viewers insisting it was undeniable evidence, others claiming it was staged or edited. But whether believers or skeptics, everyone clicked, watched, and shared. The algorithm rewarded the mystery, and soon Herobrine was spreading far beyond the original forums. One of the most significant moments in Herobrine's video history was the creation of dedicated Herobrine documentaries. These were longer videos that stitched together multiple sightings, creepypasta stories, and alleged encounters into one coherent narrative. They combined text, audio, and music to present Herobrine not just as a rumor but as a living legend. For many players, these were the first introductions to the myth. They hadn't read the forums or followed the threads, but the YouTube documentaries gave them the full story in a single sitting. These videos often leaned heavily into atmospheric music, haunting piano, echoing sound effects, or distorted Minecraft noises. Some creators went further, editing the game's sounds to include unsettling whispers or low growls when Herobrine appeared. The manipulation of sound made the experiences feel more real, tapping into viewers' emotions even if they doubted the visuals. Watching in a dark room with headphones, the line between fiction and reality blurred just enough to send shivers down the spine. The viral nature of YouTube allowed the legend to jump from niche to mainstream. Young players, many of whom weren't active on the forums, discovered Herobrine entirely through videos. They would watch compilations of top 10 Herobrine sightings or Herobrine caught on camera and immediately rush to their own worlds to see if he might appear. For children especially, the videos carried the weight of authority. If someone had it on video, it had to be real. As the legend grew, so did the production quality. Creators began deliberately crafting Herobrine content using mods, skins, and clever editing. They staged encounters that were more dramatic than anything described in the creepypasta. For instance, some videos showed Herobrine building strange towers right in front of the player, or setting entire forests on fire with a wave of his hand. Others depicted long chases, where the player ran through tunnels while Herobrine pursued, always just a step behind. These videos were clearly staged, but they were thrilling nonetheless. They blended horror storytelling with Minecraft gameplay, creating a new form of entertainment that blurred the boundary between myth and machinima. Perhaps the most influential creators in this era were those who treated Herobrine like an episodic series. They would upload weekly or monthly updates about their encounters, as if chronicling an ongoing haunting. Viewers subscribed not just for the gameplay but for the story unfolding across episodes. Would Herobrine appear again? Would he grow stronger? Could the player ever escape? These series attracted loyal audiences who tuned in like they would for a favorite TV show, eagerly awaiting the next chilling installment. One clever twist that many of these videos employed was the use of glitches. Minecraft was still being updated frequently, and bugs were common. Creators took advantage of this by incorporating glitches into their narratives. If a block flickered, if an item disappeared, if the lighting glitched, it could all be explained as Herobrine's influence. The ordinary quirks of a game in development became fuel for the legend, giving players new reasons to question what they saw. The more polished videos didn't diminish the power of the simple ones, though. Even a short clip of a figure in the fog could rack up hundreds of thousands of views. The ambiguity was part of the appeal. Viewers could debate endlessly in the comments. Was it real, a trick, or a mod? Every new video kept the conversation alive, ensuring Herobrine remained a constant presence in the Minecraft community. By this point, Herobrine was no longer just a character in a story, he was an internet celebrity. Fan-made music videos emerged, often set to popular songs with lyrics rewritten to reference the haunting figure. Animations, depicted Herobrine battling players, summoning monsters, or lurking in the shadows. Even parodies flourished, with creators poking fun at the hysteria while still keeping the myth alive. The sheer variety of content meant that whether you believed in Herobrine or not, you couldn't avoid him if you spent time on Minecraft YouTube. For many players, their first introduction to Herobrine came not from a forum post but from one of these videos. They didn't know about the creepypasta or the supposed email from Notch. They knew only that there were videos online showing a mysterious figure with glowing white eyes. And that was enough. The visual confirmation, however staged, carried weight. It became a story you could not only read, but watch, replay, and share with friends. What's remarkable is how these early videos shaped the collective memory of Herobrine. They established the visual language of the legend, the white-eyed figure glimpsed from afar, the sudden vanishings, the unexplained structures. Even players who had never read the original creepypasta came to associate these motifs with Herobrine because they saw them repeatedly in video form. The legend evolved from text into image and from image into motion, each step making it feel more real. In the quiet of late-night browsing, with the glow of the screen reflecting in tired eyes, viewers clicked through video after video, immersing themselves in the mystery. The longer they watched, the more plausible it seemed. After all, how could so many different people be faking the same thing? The question lingered, planting seeds of doubt that grew whenever they loaded into their own lonely worlds. And so, through the power of YouTube, Herobrine escaped the confines of forums and became a global phenomenon. His legend no longer relied on a single post or a single story. It was reinforced by countless voices, countless videos, each adding another layer to the myth. For some, Herobrine became a joke. For others, he became a genuine fear. But for all, he became unforgettable. What gave Herobrine his chilling power was not only the mystery of his existence, but also the unsettling clarity of his appearance. Again and again, players described him in almost identical terms. The same blocky body as the player character, the same default clothes of the Steve model, the same square-shaped head, the same stiff arms. And yet, one feature set him apart and transformed him from an ordinary figure into something uncanny. His eyes. Those eyes were always blank white, glowing faintly as if lit from within, and completely devoid of pupils or color. It was a small change in the model, barely more than a texture swap, but it made all the difference. Eyes are often called the windows to the soul, and in Herobrine's case, the absence of pupils suggested the absence of humanity. When players described seeing him at a distance, they always fixated on those eyes. They could pierce the fog, watching silently from a hillside or the edge of a forest. Even when the rest of his form blended into the landscape, those eyes stood out like lanterns, impossible to mistake for anything else. This detail was so effective because it fit seamlessly into Minecraft's blocky simplicity. In a world where creatures were built of rectangles and textures were flat, glowing white eyes were just realistic enough to be terrifying without feeling out of place. They were minimal, but they carried weight. Players would describe being alone in a cave, torchlight flickering, when suddenly two bright squares appeared in the darkness. Before they could react, the figure would vanish, leaving nothing behind. Beyond his appearance, Herobrine was associated with a set of behaviors that became his signature. These were not random actions, but recurring patterns described across countless sightings, giving the impression of a consistent personality, or at least a consistent agenda. One of the most famous behaviors was his tendency to watch. He rarely attacked players directly. Instead, he lingered at the edge of vision, standing on a mountain ridge, lurking in a foggy forest, peering through a window. Witnesses described him as a silent observer, always there but never engaging, as if studying the player's every move. This behavior made him more unsettling than an aggressive enemy. Minecraft was full of dangers, zombies, skeletons, creepers, but all of those could be confronted and fought. Herobrine, on the other hand, could not be fought. He could not be approached. He simply appeared, stared, and disappeared, leaving players with the gnawing sense that they were not alone. It was the feeling of being watched that haunted people most, a primal fear brought into a digital world. Another behavior often attributed to Herobrine was the creation of strange structures. These were not the grand castles or cities built by players, but small, eerie constructions, 2x2 tunnels, perfectly carved, leading deep into caves, sand pyramids with precise geometry, random cobblestone towers jutting from the ground, or even single blocks placed in inexplicable locations. These builds were always described as sudden, discovered in places where the player swore nothing had been before. The randomness of them added to the mystery. Why would Herobrine make these things? What purpose did they serve? Some stories suggested that he was marking territory, leaving behind signs of his presence. Others believed the structures were traps, luring players deeper into caves or confusing them with unnatural landmarks. The lack of explanation gave players' imaginations free rein, and soon every odd quirk of world generation was attributed to Herobrine. If a hill had an unnatural cut, if a forest seemed oddly arranged, if a cave looked too symmetrical, surely it was his doing. A third behavior often described was his manipulation of the environment in subtle but disturbing ways. Players swore that Herobrine would remove leaves from trees, dig holes straight down into the earth, or replace blocks with others. In one account, a player claimed that torches they had placed in a cave were suddenly extinguished, leaving them in darkness, with only the faint outline of Herobrine visible for an instant before he vanished. In another, livestock disappeared from fenced enclosures, as though taken by an unseen hand. These subtle disturbances made it feel as though the world itself had turned against the player, manipulated by an invisible presence. The most dramatic stories claimed that Herobrine had powers far beyond simple building or breaking blocks. Some described him as capable of summoning mobs, causing sudden storms, or even crashing the game entirely. In these accounts, his presence extended beyond the world into the code itself, as if he were not just a figure in the game but a glitch in the very fabric of Minecraft. One famous story claimed that after seeing Herobrine, the player's save file became corrupted, their world irretrievably lost. To them, it was proof that he was more than an illusion. He had real consequences. Yet despite all these behaviors, the most consistent theme was ambiguity. Herobrine was rarely described as outright hostile. He never openly fought the player or chased them in ways that mobs would. Instead, his behavior hovered between menace and mystery. He seemed to observe, to interfere just enough to unsettle, but never to reveal his true purpose. This ambiguity left space for endless speculation. Was he a ghost, trapped in the code, trying to communicate? Was he a malevolent force, plotting something darker? Or was he simply a trickster, toying with players for reasons unknown? The uniformity of his appearance and actions is striking. Though these stories came from countless sources, they echoed one another with uncanny consistency. The white eyes, the silent watching, the strange structures. This repetition gave the myth credibility. If so many players describe the same details, surely there must be some truth to it. The collective imagination of the community began to shape Herobrine into a coherent character, not just a random glitch or rumor. What makes this fascinating is how it mirrors the way folklore develops in the real world. Ghost stories across cultures often share common elements: apparitions appearing in windows, strange noises in the night, objects moved without explanation. Herobrine became a kind of digital folklore, with his own set of motifs: white eyes, tunnels, pyramids, leafless trees. Each new sighting that repeated these motifs reinforced them further, until they became essential parts of the legend. Players also began to interpret these behaviors symbolically. Some saw the tunnels as metaphors for the unknown, passages leading deeper into darkness. Others viewed the barren trees as symbols of decay, the life drained from the world by Herobrine's presence. The glowing eyes were often read as a sign of otherworldliness, proof that he was not a player but something beyond. The interpretations varied, but all added depth to the myth, making Herobrine not just a scary figure but a character with meaning. In fan art and animations, these traits were exaggerated to heighten the fear. Artists would depict Herobrine looming in the background, eyes glowing brighter than torches, surrounded by the eerie constructions attributed to him. Animators often showed him moving silently, appearing and disappearing with unnatural speed, or bending the environment around him. These depictions took the simple details described in sightings and elevated them into a more polished form, feeding back into the myth and shaping how new players imagined him. Over time, Herobrine's appearance and behaviors became so standardized that they were treated almost like canon, even though he never appeared in the official game. If you asked any player to describe Herobrine, they would mention the same details: the Steve body, the white eyes, the silent observation, the strange structures. This consistency was a testament to the power of collective storytelling. And yet, part of what made Herobrine so powerful was what players did not know. He never spoke. He never revealed his intentions. He was defined as much by what he didn't do as by what he did. The silence, the vanishing, the unanswered questions, all of these left space for fear to grow. As you settle deeper into this story, imagine playing alone in a quiet Minecraft world. The sun has set, the torches flicker, and the caves stretch on into darkness. You turn a corner and see two glowing squares in the distance watching silently. You blink, and they are gone. Later, you notice a tunnel that wasn't there before, or a tree stripped bare of leaves. You know the legend. You know the stories. And in the quiet of your room you wonder, is he here, watching me too? Of all the theories surrounding Herobrine, none captured imaginations more than the idea that he was Notch's brother. It began quietly, tucked into the earliest creepypasta accounts, but it soon became the cornerstone of the myth. The thought that the mysterious white-eyed figure wandering Minecraft was not just a random glitch, but the spectral echo of the game creator's family member gave the legend a gravity it might not otherwise have had. The original story described how a player, troubled by sightings of the strange figure, reached out to Notch directly. To their surprise, the story claimed, Notch responded with a short, chilling message. Yes, Herobrine existed in the game, but only as a reminder of his brother who had died. This supposed email gave the myth an emotional weight. Herobrine was no longer just a haunting presence. He was tied to grief, to memory, to the deeply human story of loss. Of course, in reality, Notch never had a brother named Herobrine. He has confirmed this many times, often with humor, even tweeting jokes about removing Herobrine in patch notes. But the truth did little to dampen the rumor. Once the idea was out there, it took on a life of its own, repeated across forums, videos, and word of mouth until it felt inseparable from the myth. Part of the appeal lay in how believable it sounded at the time. Minecraft was still in its early days, developed primarily by a small team. Notch was a visible figure in the community, active on forums and Twitter. The thought of him slipping a tribute into the game didn't feel impossible. Players wanted to believe that the ghostly figure was more than a bug, that it carried meaning, that it reflected something real about the person who had created their beloved game. The idea of Herobrine as Notch's brother also gave the legend a sense of tragedy. It recast Herobrine not as a villain, but as a lost soul, a presence wandering Minecraft's blocky landscapes because he had nowhere else to go. Some stories described him as lonely, watching players not out of malice but longing. Others interpreted his strange structures as attempts at communication, ways of leaving behind messages in a language of blocks and tunnels. This sympathetic interpretation made the legend richer, more than just a jump scare. Herobrine could be pitied as well as feared. Yet, the theory also had darker interpretations. Some players suggested that Herobrine was not simply a ghostly tribute but a mistake, an accident born from grief, an unintended consequence of trying to immortalize a lost brother in code. In these versions, Herobrine became corrupted, something beyond Notch's control, haunting the game against his creator's will. This framing made him feel even more powerful, a figure with roots in both reality and the supernatural, something not even the game's developer could banish. The theory spread rapidly, reinforced by how often it was repeated. YouTube documentaries leaned heavily on it, presenting the alleged email from Notch as if it were fact. Fan-made wikis and lore pages included it as part of their explanations, treating Herobrine's identity as Notch's brother as established canon. Even children whispering about Herobrine at school would mention it with certainty. He's Notch's brother. He died, and now he's in the game. The rumor became so ingrained that it was difficult to imagine the legend without it. For many players, especially younger ones, this detail blurred the boundary between fiction and reality. They knew Notch was a real person. They knew Minecraft was a real game. If Herobrine was tied to Notch's actual family, then maybe the rest of the legend had truth to it as well. It was the connection to reality that made the myth feel so much more believable than an ordinary creepypasta. Notch himself occasionally fanned the flames, whether intentionally or not. In tweets and interviews, he would address Herobrine with a mix of humor and denial, saying things like, "Herobrine isn't real," or "I don't have a dead brother." But for those who wanted to believe, these denials sounded like cover-ups. Some players argued that he was forced to keep the truth hidden, perhaps by Mojang itself, or that admitting the existence of Herobrine would cause panic. His casual dismissal was read not as clarification but as evasion, the kind of denial that only made the legend stronger. The theory also inspired countless works of fan fiction and fan art. Writers spun elaborate backstories in which Notch and Herobrine grew up together, one destined to create, the other cursed to destroy. Artists depicted them as brothers locked in eternal conflict, one representing light and the other shadow. These stories expanded the lore far beyond the original creepypasta, transforming Herobrine from a simple ghostly presence into a mythic figure with ties to the very foundation of Minecraft's universe. Some fan theories suggested that Herobrine had once been human, just like the player character, but that his death caused him to become trapped in the code of the game. Others speculated that he was the opposite of Notch, a kind of dark twin who represented everything Notch was not. In these interpretations, their brotherhood wasn't literal but symbolic, a way of explaining why Herobrine felt so deeply woven into the game, despite never being part of its official design. The theory of Herobrine as Notch's brother also reflected a broader human need for explanation. Ghost stories often tie apparitions to unresolved deaths, to spirits who linger because of unfinished business. Herobrine's brotherhood gave him that unfinished business. It explained why he wandered the worlds of Minecraft aimlessly, building strange structures and watching silently. He was searching for something, perhaps for Notch, perhaps for connection, perhaps simply for rest. Without this theory, Herobrine might have remained a glitch. With it, he became a story. Over time, the brother theory became so iconic that even Mojang began to reference it jokingly. The removed Herobrine patch note, which appeared in multiple updates, was a tongue-in-cheek acknowledgement of the myth, playing into the idea that Herobrine had once been there, but had since been taken out. Each time the note appeared, players debated whether it was just a joke or a subtle confirmation that the legend had truth. The repeated denials and jokes blurred the lines further, keeping the rumor alive even as Mojang tried to laugh it off. The endurance of the brother theory is a testament to the power of storytelling. It shows how a single invented detail, once repeated often enough, can become indistinguishable from truth in the collective memory of a community. Ask any group of players about Herobrine, and many will recall, without hesitation, that he was Notch's brother. It doesn't matter that Notch himself has denied it repeatedly. The story lives on because it resonates. And so, in the quiet hours of play, when players wander through forests or mine into darkness, the thought lingers. If Herobrine was real, if he truly was the ghost of Notch's brother, then perhaps every block in Minecraft carries a hidden history. Perhaps the world itself is haunted, not just by monsters and mobs, but by grief encoded into its very structure. The legend asks us to look at the game not just as software, but as a space where human stories, loss, memory, longing can live on in digital form. Whether you believe the theory or not, it remains one of the most powerful elements of the Herobrine myth. It gave the white-eyed figure a heart, a reason, a connection to reality that made him unforgettable. And even now, years later, players still whisper about Notch's brother, still glance nervously into the fog, still wonder if those glowing eyes belong to something more than a story. One of the most enduring aspects of the Herobrine legend was not just the idea of him watching from afar, but the physical traces he supposedly left behind in the world. These traces, strange and inexplicable, became almost like his signature signs that you were not alone in your Minecraft world. Players would log in expecting to see their familiar builds and landscapes, only to stumble across something unfamiliar, something unnatural, and immediately think, Herobrine has been here. The most common of these signs were tunnels. Again and again, players described entering caves or mining deep underground, only to find long, perfectly straight tunnels stretching far into the darkness. These tunnels were always described in the same way: 2 blocks high, 2 blocks wide, cleanly carved, and utterly devoid of torches. Sometimes they ended abruptly, as if abandoned. Other times they branched at right angles, forming mazes that seemed too regular to be natural, but too purposeless to be intentional. For players who stumbled into these tunnels, the experience was eerie. They knew they hadn't mined them. They knew no one else had access to their single-player world. And yet, here they were, endless corridors carved into the rock. For many, it was the clearest proof that Herobrine was real. Then there were the trees. Entire groves of them would appear stripped of leaves, leaving only bare trunks behind. In Minecraft, it was unusual to see trees without leaves unless fire had burned them away. But in these accounts, The trees stood untouched, perfectly bare, as if something had methodically removed every leaf block. Some players described finding a forest half stripped, with one section lush and green and the other skeletal and lifeless, as though Herobrine had passed through and left a trail of decay. Others recalled hearing nothing, no chopping sounds, no sign of fire, only logging in and discovering the silent aftermath. For those players, the leafless groves felt like scars, reminders that their world had been touched by something beyond their control. Another common phenomenon was the sudden appearance of pyramids made of sand. These were not grand structures like desert temples, but small, precise shapes, usually just a few blocks tall, with perfect, triangular sides. Players often found them on beaches or in open deserts, standing alone and out of place. Some claimed that when they climbed to the top of these pyramids, they would find a single flower or torch placed there, as though left as a calling card. The symmetry of the pyramids contrasted so sharply with Minecraft's usual terrain generation that they seemed deliberate, and since players insisted they hadn't built them, they became another piece of evidence in the case for Herobrine. Square holes were also widely reported. Players described stumbling across one-block-deep pits, perfectly square in shape, sometimes stretching in long lines or arranged in patterns. They served no purpose, leading nowhere, yet they appeared in places the players swore they hadn't touched. The randomness of these holes made them all the more unsettling. Why would anyone or anything dig them? Their emptiness seemed to symbolize absence, as if blocks had been erased from existence, leaving only voids behind. Torches, too, played a role in the sightings. Some players swore that they would find torches placed in caves they had never explored. Others said the opposite, that torches they had placed were suddenly gone, leaving their tunnels in complete darkness. This manipulation of light carried a special kind of dread. Minecraft's torches were symbols of safety, little islands of warmth against the monsters of the dark. To have them altered without explanation felt like a violation, as though Herobrine was toying with the very sense of security players relied on. More elaborate stories described entire landscapes altered in unnatural ways. Hillsides were flattened, lakes appeared in odd places, valleys stretched in suspiciously straight lines. These changes often came with sightings of Herobrine himself standing on a hilltop, watching as though surveying his handiwork. In these tales, he seemed less like a ghost and more like a builder, quietly reshaping the world for reasons no one could understand. Livestock also appeared in these accounts. Players would report animals disappearing from fenced enclosures or being found clustered in odd groups far from where they had been left. Some swore they found sheep dyed strange colors without explanation. Others claimed they saw Herobrine leading animals into caves, though by the time they followed, both he and the animals had vanished. These details added to the impression that Herobrine was not just an observer but an active manipulator of the world. A particularly chilling set of stories described signs, not the wooden sign blocks players could craft, but signs of intent. Some accounts claimed players discovered literal sign blocks placed in their world with cryptic messages, single words like stop or leave, or even strings of gibberish that felt like corrupted code. Whether faked or imagined, these stories struck a deep chord. A message meant communication, and communication meant motive. If Herobrine was leaving signs, then he was more than a glitch. He was intelligent. He was aware. Of course, skeptics argued that all of these structures could be explained by quirks in terrain generation or simple player error. Tunnels could be caves, pyramids could be strange sand formations, leafless trees could be bugs, but believers pointed to the consistency. Across countless independent stories, the same motifs appeared: tunnels, pyramids, bare trees, holes, misplaced torches. The sheer repetition gave the impression of pattern, and pattern suggested intent. What's fascinating is how these reported encounters mirrored the logic of folklore. Ghost stories often include physical signs, footsteps in empty hallways, objects moved without explanation, cold spots in rooms. Herobrine's legend followed the same structure, offering not just sightings but evidence, tangible marks on the world that players could discover and interpret. These traces turned the myth into something interactive. Players didn't just read about Herobrine. They searched for him, combing their worlds for signs, cataloging each oddity as proof. Entire communities formed around sharing these discoveries. Forum threads were filled with screenshots of suspicious tunnels, barren forests, and sand pyramids. Some players even created guides listing all the known signs of Herobrine's presence, encouraging others to check their worlds for similar patterns. What began as isolated anecdotes grew into a collective investigation, with thousands of players scouring their games for traces of the ghostly figure. This search created a feedback loop. The more people looked for signs, the more they found, and the more they found, the more convinced they became. Even natural quirks of the game began to look suspicious. A strangely shaped cave was not just a cave, it was a tunnel. A missing torch was not just a glitch, it was Herobrine. The legend colored the way players saw their worlds, turning every oddity into evidence. And yet, this was part of the magic. The myth transformed ordinary gameplay into mystery. It gave players new reasons to explore, to question, to share. Even if the tunnels were just caves and the pyramids just glitches, they became part of a larger story, one that made the world feel alive in ways no official update could. In the stillness of late-night play, when the only sounds were footsteps echoing in caves or the soft rustle of leaves, players would stumble upon a strange structure and pause. They would take a screenshot, heart racing, and think, "He's here." And whether they truly believed it or not, the feeling lingered. Herobrine's signature was everywhere, carved into the blocks themselves. One of the most fascinating aspects of the Herobrine story is not just what players claimed to see, but why so many of them believed it. After all, Minecraft was not marketed as a horror game. It was a sandbox of creativity, exploration, and gentle survival challenges. Yet within this peaceful, blocky world, players found themselves haunted. The reasons for this belief are complex, blending psychology, imagination, and the unique way the game presented itself. At its core, Minecraft was a game of solitude. Before multiplayer servers became common, many players spent hours alone in single-player worlds. The landscape stretched endlessly in every direction, generated anew with each seed. There were no quests, no scripted storylines, no non-player characters beyond the animals and monsters. The player was the only human presence in a vast, empty world. That emptiness carried its own kind of unease. In real life, forests are full of life. Cities are bustling with people. In Minecraft, a forest was silent except for the occasional crunch of footsteps or distant zombie groan. A village might appear, but villagers were strange and wordless. In such an environment, even the idea of another human presence felt uncanny. This loneliness primed players to interpret anything unusual as evidence of something more. A carved tunnel was not just terrain generation, it was someone else's work. A glimpse of white eyes in the fog was not just a sheep in the distance, it was a figure watching, When players already felt alone, the possibility of not being alone was both terrifying and compelling. Another layer of psychology comes from what is known as pareidolia, the human tendency to see patterns where none exist. It is the same phenomenon that makes people see faces in clouds or hear hidden messages in noise. Minecraft's blocky world was full of patterns: grids of stone, pixelated shapes, random terrain. When players searched for signs of Herobrine, pareidolia helped them. A vaguely humanoid shape in the fog became a man. A cluster of blocks that looked carved became a tunnel. Once players believed Herobrine might exist, they were more likely to see him everywhere. Fear also played a crucial role. Humans are wired to pay attention to threats, especially in uncertain environments. In Minecraft, nighttime brought danger: zombies, skeletons, spiders, and the dreaded creeper. Even experienced players sometimes felt tension when the sun set, their torches flickering in the dark. In that atmosphere, the idea of a mysterious figure lurking just beyond the light tapped into primal instincts. The brain, already on edge, magnified shadows into threats. Herobrine became the ultimate expression of that fear, not just another monster to fight, but a ghostly presence that could not be predicted or defeated. Community storytelling amplified all of this. When the first Herobrine stories appeared online, they spread quickly because they resonated with players' own experiences. Many had felt a flicker of unease in their worlds, a moment when they thought they saw something move in the fog or noticed a block out of place. Herobrine gave those feelings a name, a story that explained them. Once the legend existed, players could link their personal experiences to it, reinforcing the myth. "I thought I saw something strange once too," they would say, and suddenly their memory became part of the larger narrative. This shared storytelling turned individual fear into collective belief. On forums and YouTube videos, players swapped tales of their encounters. Some fabricated screenshots, while others earnestly described what they had seen. The line between joke and sincerity blurred, but that only added to the legend's strength. A hoax exposed might have killed interest, but Herobrine thrived because he lived in the uncertain space between real and fake. He was neither fully debunked nor fully confirmed, and that ambiguity made him more powerful. Psychologists sometimes describe this as the uncanny valley of belief. When something is too unbelievable, people dismiss it outright. But when it is just believable enough, with room for doubt, it lingers in the imagination. Herobrine occupied that middle ground. Players knew Minecraft was a computer program, yet they also knew programs could contain glitches, Easter eggs, or secrets. If any game could hide a ghost in its code, why not this one? Another factor was the simplicity of Minecraft's graphics. Its blocky, pixelated world left much to the imagination. Unlike hyper-realistic games where every detail is clear, Minecraft gave players space to project their own fears. A figure in the distance could not be easily identified because the graphics were too simple. Was it a sheep, a zombie, or a man with white eyes? The lack of detail forced the brain to fill in the blanks, and often it filled them with fear. Herobrine thrived in those blanks, becoming whatever players most dreaded. The timing of the myth also mattered. Herobrine stories emerged when YouTube was becoming a hub for gaming content, and creepypasta culture was on the rise. Creepy stories about video games, haunted cartridges, cursed ROMs, mysterious figures spread like wildfire online. Younger audiences, especially, were drawn to tales that blurred the line between game and reality. Herobrine was perfectly suited for this environment. He was not just a ghost story, but a ghost story you could experience yourself in your own copy of the game. That interactivity set him apart from other urban legends. Herobrine also appealed to a deep-rooted human desire for mystery. Games often present themselves as complete, designed experiences with clear rules. But players love the idea that there might be more, that hidden beneath the surface lies a secret no one has uncovered. Herobrine represented that possibility. He was the secret that might be lurking in the code, waiting for someone to discover him. Believing in him was a way of keeping the game open-ended, full of wonder and danger beyond what the developers admitted. Interestingly, the legend also created a paradoxical comfort. While Herobrine was frightening, he also meant that players were not truly alone in their worlds. For some, this made Minecraft feel less empty, less isolating. It was unsettling, yes, but also thrilling, the idea that there was something more, someone else out there, even if it was a ghost. This mix of fear and comfort mirrored the way children tell ghost stories around campfires. The fear is real, but it is also shared, and in sharing, it becomes fun. Over time, Herobrine became a cultural test of sorts. Believing in him marked you as imaginative, open to mystery, and part of the community. Denying him marked you as a skeptic, unwilling to play along with the story. Neither stance was wrong, but together they kept the conversation alive. The believers provided tales and sightings, while the skeptics provided debunkings and challenges. Each side needed the other, and Herobrine thrived in the tension between them. Perhaps the most telling evidence of the psychological power of the legend was how players reacted even after Mojang officially denied Herobrine's existence. Update logs that jokingly included "removed Herobrine" only fueled the fire because players interpreted the joke as a cover-up. If Mojang had to keep saying they removed him, then surely he must have been there in the first place. The developers' denials became part of the conspiracy, and the conspiracy made Herobrine all the more believable. In the end, the psychological roots of Herobrine's legend explain why he has endured. He was never just about tunnels or bare trees or white eyes. He was about the way players experience the game, the loneliness, the imagination, the search for meaning in the random patterns of blocks. He was about the thrill of the unknown and the joy of telling stories together. He was, in a sense, the ghost of the players themselves, haunting the worlds they had created. As night fell in countless Minecraft landscapes, as players lit their torches and listened to the ambient music drift through their speakers, the thought would arise, what if he's out there? And that thought, more than any screenshot or video, was the true heart of the Herobrine myth. As the Herobrine legend grew, it did not remain confined to whispered stories on forums or quick mentions in chat logs. It blossomed into a whole genre of creepypasta and fan fiction, transforming a simple rumor into elaborate narratives filled with dread, suspense, and imaginative detail. For many players, these stories were their first introduction to the myth, long before they ever experienced a supposed sighting in their own world. Reading them at night, often in the same dim glow of a computer screen where they played Minecraft, gave the tales an uncanny power. They felt close, personal, and possible. The earliest creepypasta accounts usually took the form of diaries or logs. A player would begin by describing their normal gameplay, mining for resources, building a house, or exploring a new world. Then, gradually, small oddities would creep in. Trees with no leaves, then dozentina, animals behaving strangely, perfect tunnels carved in stone, and then the sighting a figure in the distance, gone before the player could approach. These stories thrived on subtlety, building tension through slow escalation rather than sudden horror. By the time Herobrine appeared, readers were already leaning forward, convinced that something was deeply wrong in the game. Over time, the stories grew more elaborate. Instead of brief encounters, writers spun tales of entire worlds corrupted by Herobrine. In some accounts, he stalked players relentlessly, appearing at the edge of their vision no matter where they turned. In others, he sabotaged their builds, replacing blocks with strange patterns or carving symbols into the land. A recurring motif was whole forests burned down overnight, as if Herobrine had swept through like a force of destruction. These details played into the fear that he was not just a passive watcher but an active threat, capable of reshaping the world to his will. Creepypasta also gave Herobrine motives. While early stories painted him as a vague ghost, later ones imagined him as vengeful, lonely, or cursed. Some writers claimed he was the spirit of a miner who died trapped in stone, forever haunting the code. Others said he was Notch's dead brother, bound to the game as punishment or sorrow. These variations gave Herobrine a mythic weight, connecting him to larger traditions of tragic ghosts and restless spirits. They made him not just a glitch, but a character with a backstory, one that tugged at both fear and pity. Fan fiction expanded even further, mixing horror with adventure. Entire sagas were written about players who faced Herobrine in epic battles, discovering hidden dimensions or cursed items along the way. In some tales, Herobrine controlled armies of corrupted mobs, sending them against the player in endless waves. In others, he commanded powers beyond the game's mechanics, summoning storms, warping terrain, or bending the rules of reality itself. These stories elevated him from ghost to demigod, a figure who could bend Minecraft's world because he was part of its very code. One of the most popular styles of Herobrine storytelling was the haunted world narrative. These accounts often began innocently. A player downloaded a new save file from a forum or received it from a friend. At first, the world looked normal, but soon, strange things happened: odd builds, cryptic signs, sudden crashes. Eventually, Herobrine would appear, his white eyes staring from the shadows. By the end of the story, the player was often driven to delete the world, only to find it mysteriously restored the next time they opened the game. These haunted world stories combine digital horror with the feeling of possession, as though the game itself refused to let go. Creepypasta writers also drew inspiration from real-world ghost stories. Classic elements like flickering lights, footsteps in empty halls, and messages written in strange places were adapted into the Minecraft setting. A player might describe torches that turned themselves off, or doors that opened and closed with no one nearby. They might find signs with words like stop or leave placed in their base, echoing the warnings of haunted houses. By borrowing these tropes, the stories tapped into familiar fears while giving them a fresh, digital twist. The creativity of the community ensured that no two stories were exactly alike. Some emphasized dread and atmosphere, focusing on the silence of abandoned mine shafts and the sudden chill of seeing those glowing eyes. Others leaned into action, imagining Herobrine as a villain to be fought and defeated. Still others explored psychological horror, suggesting that players were losing their grip on reality, unable to tell where the game ended and their own fears began. This diversity kept the legend alive, offering something for every kind of reader. Videos and machinima added another dimension to these stories. YouTubers used mods, editing, and clever staging to create visual creepypasta tales, showing Herobrine stalking players or haunting servers. The combination of gameplay footage and storytelling blurred the line between fiction and fact, especially for younger audiences who could not always tell what was staged. These videos often began like Let's Plays, casual and light-hearted, before descending into horror as Herobrine made his appearance. The shift in tone was jarring, amplifying the fear and cementing the idea that Herobrine could appear in anyone's world. What made these stories so powerful was not just their content but their accessibility. Anyone could write one, anyone could share a screenshot, anyone could claim an encounter. The barrier to entry was low, and the payoff was high attention, community engagement, and the thrill of contributing to a living myth. This openness mirrored the very design of Minecraft, a game built on creativity and sharing. Just as players built castles and cities in the game, they built legends and sagas in the community. Interestingly, Herobrine stories often carried a ritualistic tone. Writers described the exact conditions needed to summon him, playing on a certain seed, lighting netherrack, building altars of gold. These instructions resembled folklore rituals, the kind whispered among children, say a name in the mirror 3 times, walk around a churchyard at midnight. Whether or not players believed the rituals would work, they added a layer of mystique. They turned Herobrine from a passive figure into an entity that could be called forth, giving readers the illusion of control even as they courted danger. The fan fiction extended even beyond horror. Some stories portrayed Herobrine sympathetically, as a lonely figure trapped in the code, longing for release. In these versions, players sometimes befriended him, learning his tragic past and helping him find peace. Others imagined him as a neutral force, neither good nor evil, simply existing as a guardian or overseer of the world. These reinterpretations softened the fear, transforming him into a mythic figure with depth and ambiguity. Through creepypasta and fan fiction, Herobrine became more than a rumor. He became a canvas for imagination, a character players could adapt to their own storytelling needs. Some feared him, some fought him, some pitied him. All kept him alive. In this way, the legend grew far beyond its origins, evolving into a folklore tradition as rich as any ghost story told around a campfire. The difference was that this campfire was digital, flickering not with flames but with pixels, yet the feeling was the same. Shared fear, shared wonder, and the thrill of the unknown. Even today, many of these stories are still available online, preserved in archives and reposts. Reading them now, one can see how they captured a particular moment in gaming culture, a time when the internet was a breeding ground for digital legends, when players blurred the line between code and haunting, between game and ghost story. Herobrine was the perfect subject for that era, and the stories written about him remain a testament to the power of imagination in shaping how we experience games. When Mojang repeatedly denied that Herobrine was part of Minecraft, many players took that not as the end of the legend, but as a challenge. If the developers would not include the ghostly figure, then fans would do it themselves. This determination gave rise to one of the most prolific areas of Herobrine's mythology: mods. Through coding and creativity, players began adding Herobrine into the game in ways that matched, expanded, and even reimagined the stories already circulating online. The result was an entire cottage industry of fan-made content dedicated to keeping him alive. The earliest Herobrine mods were simple. They placed a wide-eyed version of the default player model into the game, often with basic artificial intelligence that allowed him to wander aimlessly. Sometimes he did nothing more than stand still, watching silently. Other times he would approach players slowly, vanish when they turned their backs, or attack without warning. Even these basic additions were enough to terrify players, because they turned rumor into reality. For the first time, one could actually see Herobrine stalking the landscape, not just imagine it. As the community grew more skilled, the mods became increasingly elaborate. Developers coded Herobrine with behaviors drawn directly from creepypasta accounts. He could build strange structures, pyramids of sand, tunnels in caves, or shrines made of gold and netherrack. He could place signs with ominous messages, teleport behind players, or summon mobs to attack. Some mods gave him supernatural powers, such as the ability to strike with lightning, set forests ablaze, or warp the terrain into twisted patterns. By combining eerie presence with destructive abilities, these mods brought to life the full scope of the stories that had once been mere text. One of the most popular mods was simply called the Herobrine mod. It allowed players to craft a totem from gold, bones, and netherrack, then light it with fire to summon Herobrine. This ritualistic process gave players the thrill of control. They could call the ghost into their world, though they had to face the consequences. Once summoned, Herobrine became relentless. He stalked the player, attacked at random, and filled the world with signs of his presence. The ritual element made the experience feel like a digital seance, turning gameplay into something that felt almost supernatural. Other mods expanded on this idea by giving Herobrine multiple forms or escalating stages of power. In some, he began as a passive watcher but grew more aggressive over time, eventually becoming a near unstoppable boss. These versions turned him into the ultimate endgame challenge, something beyond the Ender Dragon or the Wither. Players had to prepare carefully, gathering weapons, armor, and allies before daring to summon him. In this way, Herobrine mods blurred the line between horror and adventure, making him both a source of fear and a test of skill. Herobrine also made his way into adventure maps. These custom worlds, crafted by players and shared online, often placed Herobrine at the center of elaborate stories. Some maps told tales of haunted villages where Herobrine ruled, filling them with traps and puzzles. Others cast the player as a hero on a quest to defeat him, battling through dungeons and arenas filled with monsters. These maps often combined redstone contraptions, command blocks, and custom textures to create scripted events, doors slamming shut, eerie messages appearing, or Herobrine himself teleporting in at key moments. For players exploring these maps, the immersion was total. They were not just reading a story, they were living it. Texture packs and skins also contributed to the myth. Players created wide-eyed versions of the default skin, allowing anyone to play as Herobrine. On multiplayer servers, this could cause genuine panic, as other players suddenly saw Herobrine among them, unsure whether it was a mod, a prank, or something more sinister. Some servers even leaned into the idea, holding Herobrine nights, where one player would secretly take on the role of Herobrine, stalking and scaring the others. These playful adaptations kept the legend alive in new ways, blending fear with community fun. Videos showcasing Herobrine mods and maps exploded in popularity on YouTube. Content creators staged encounters, dramatized battles, or simply reacted with genuine fear as Herobrine appeared in their game. For many viewers, these videos were their first exposure to a real Herobrine. Seeing him walk across the screen, hearing the panic in a player's voice, made the myth feel tangible. Even if they knew it was modded, the visual impact was powerful. The mods gave the legend a body, a face, and a presence that screenshots and text alone could not match. Interestingly, the rise of mods also reinforced the ambiguity of the legend. Some players, especially younger ones, did not realize that mods were required to add Herobrine. They saw videos of him in the game and assumed he must be real. This blurred line between modded content and genuine gameplay added another layer of mystery. Was Herobrine just a fan creation, Or had Mojang hidden him somewhere deep in the code? The existence of mods made the denial harder to pin down, because evidence of his presence was everywhere. As the years went on, Herobrine mods became more sophisticated, incorporating advanced scripting and even custom voice lines. Some versions gave him eerie laughter, distorted sounds, or chilling music cues when he appeared. Others added quests, lore, and even dialogue, treating him as a fully fleshed-out character within Minecraft's universe. These developments transformed Herobrine from a simple rumor into a mythic figure with depth, power, and personality. Even outside of direct gameplay, Herobrine-inspired creations flourished. Fan art depicted him in countless styles, from terrifying monster to tragic anti-hero. Animations portrayed him battling Steve, ruling over armies of mobs, or wandering the world alone. Some creators gave him entire backstories, imagining his fall from grace or his eternal imprisonment in the code. These interpretations varied wildly, but they all shared one thing. They kept Herobrine relevant, shaping him into whatever the community needed him to be. What is most remarkable is how these fan-made creations mirrored the very spirit of Minecraft itself. The game was always about building, modifying, and sharing. Herobrine became another block to build with, another story to craft, another experience to share. By creating mods, maps, and art, players took ownership of the myth, ensuring it would endure regardless of Mojang's official stance. In a sense, Herobrine was the ultimate community project, born not from the developers, but from the imagination of players around the world. Through mods and fan-made content, Herobrine transcended rumor. He became an interactive legend, one that could be summoned, battled, or even befriended. He was no longer just a ghost haunting the edges of gameplay. He was a fully realized part of the Minecraft experience. And in the process, he proved something profound, that myths do not need to be official to be real. They only need to be believed, shared, and lived. If single-player worlds were where Herobrine was born, multiplayer servers were where his legend truly thrived. The communal nature of online play magnified every eerie moment and suspicious event, transforming them from isolated oddities into shared experiences. On a quiet night, when dozens of players roamed the same server, even the smallest strange occurrence could set off whispers. Was that Herobrine? And once the name was spoken, it spread like wildfire across the chat, climbing into myths retold for weeks afterward. Servers provided the perfect stage for Herobrine's haunting. Unlike single player, where every change to the world could be explained by the player's own actions, multiplayer opened the door to uncertainty. Who had mined that tunnel? Who had stripped the leaves off that forest? Who had left that pyramid of sand standing on the beach? In servers where players didn't know everyone personally, the answer could easily become not a player at all, but Herobrine. Griefing played a central role in these tales. Griefers, players who destroyed others' builds, stole items, or otherwise caused chaos, often disguised themselves as Herobrine, using skins with blank white eyes to heighten the illusion. They would sneak into bases, replace blocks with ominous signs, or set structures on fire. When the victims discovered the destruction, the griefers were long gone, leaving only mystery behind. To players who weren't aware of the prank, the damage seemed supernatural, a sign that Herobrine had visited their world. Some servers leaned into the myth deliberately, creating events where Herobrine appeared to haunt the community. Admins would spawn mobs in unusual places, alter landscapes overnight, or send cryptic messages through the chat. Players logged in to find strange shrines, unexplained holes, or forests stripped bare. On Halloween or other special nights, Herobrine would suddenly join the server, his name flashing in the player list, and chaos would ensue. These staged events blurred the line between joke and reality, ensuring that players talked about them long after. But not all sightings were pranks. Sometimes, genuine glitches created perfect fuel for the legend. Server lag could cause a player's skin to load incorrectly, showing the blank-eyed default model for a moment before correcting itself. Network issues might display ghostly names in the player list, then erase them before anyone could confirm. Chunks of terrain sometimes loaded incorrectly, revealing hollow voids or strange symmetrical patterns. To players primed to believe in Herobrine, these moments felt like confirmation. They would swear they saw him standing in the distance, even if the evidence disappeared in seconds. One of the most chilling aspects of multiplayer Herobrine stories was the idea that he could join a server without anyone inviting him. Players described logging in and seeing Herobrine appear in the player list, despite no one by that name being registered. Sometimes he would vanish instantly. Other times, he lingered, silent and unmoving. In these tales, no one ever saw him directly, but the mere presence of his name was enough to spark panic. Was someone trolling with a hacked account, or had Herobrine truly found a way into the server? Videos documenting these multiplayer encounters became incredibly popular. YouTubers recorded entire sessions where Herobrine haunted their servers, appearing in the distance or altering builds. Often these were staged, but the reactions were genuine players, shouting, panicking, or fleeing as Herobrine seemed to stalk them. For viewers at home, the fear felt contagious. If Herobrine could appear on that server, then maybe he could appear on theirs. Communities developed their own localized legends. On some servers, players swore that Herobrine lived in the Nether, waiting to ambush anyone who ventured too far. On others, he was said to haunt abandoned mineshafts, attacking anyone who mined too deeply. Some servers even claimed that Herobrine claimed certain areas, deserts, caves, or mountains, where players would vanish mysteriously if they lingered too long. These tales varied, but all carried the same underlying message: be careful, because Herobrine is watching. Interestingly, the multiplayer environment also created stories of resistance. Some servers imagined entire factions dedicated to fighting or containing Herobrine. Players built shrines, fortresses, or watchtowers designed to keep him at bay. They would patrol areas where he had supposedly been seen, treating the myth as if it were a real threat. Others role-played as allies of Herobrine, spreading chaos in his name and claiming to be his servants. This gave rise to server-wide dramas, with heroes and villains clashing in a theater of myth that was half play, half belief. The role of skins cannot be overstated. Wearing a Herobrine skin in a crowded server could cause immediate panic. Players would chase, flee, or flood the chat with warnings. Some griefers perfected the art of moving silently, appearing just long enough to be spotted before vanishing into caves or logging out. For those who saw him, the moment felt real. They would swear afterward that they had truly encountered Herobrine, not realizing it was just another player. Yet even after countless pranks and staged events, many players insisted they had encountered something no human could explain. They spoke of structures appearing in protected zones, where no player had permission to build. They described mobs behaving strangely, gathering in unnatural clusters or vanishing instantly. They reported eerie sounds in the distance, doors opening, footsteps echoing, whispers in the chat that no one admitted to sending. These experiences could often be explained as glitches or admin tricks, but for believers, They were proof of Herobrine's presence. Multiplayer servers turned Herobrine into a social ghost story. Like campfire tales, they thrived because they were told among groups, spreading through word of mouth and shared fear. If one player saw something strange, they told others. Soon, everyone was watching for signs, interpreting every oddity as evidence. The legend became self-sustaining, fueled by the excitement of collective belief. In many ways, Herobrine on servers represented the blending of folklore and play. Players weren't just gaming, they were participating in a living myth. The servers became digital villages, and Herobrine was the spirit haunting the outskirts. Every prank, glitch, and rumor added to the tapestry, keeping the legend alive long after Mojang had denied it. For some, these experiences were just jokes, harmless fun in a blocky world. For others, they were thrilling brushes with the unknown, moments when a game of creativity and survival transformed into something uncanny. But whether players believed or not, one thing was certain: the legend of Herobrine would not have survived without multiplayer. It was in the laughter, the shouts, the whispered warnings in chat that he truly came to life. And so, on countless servers around the world, players logged in at night, their builds standing quiet in the moonlight, and wondered, who else is here with us? Herobrine began as a whisper in forum posts and chat logs, but it wasn't long before he spread far beyond the boundaries of Minecraft itself. What started as a community rumor transformed into a full-blown cultural phenomenon, touching not only players of the game but anyone who spent time online in the era of creepypasta and viral content. By the peak of his popularity, Herobrine was not just a Minecraft myth. He was an icon of internet folklore, referenced in videos, memes, parodies, and even other games. YouTube played perhaps the single most important role in turning Herobrine into a household name. Early on, creators began staging sightings, recording themselves exploring caves, chopping trees, or wandering through foggy landscapes before suddenly catching a glimpse of white eyes staring back at them. Often these sightings were staged with mods, skins, or clever editing, but for viewers, especially younger ones, they felt completely real. Videos with titles like Herobrine Caught on Camera or Proof Herobrine Exists attracted millions of clicks. The thumbnails alone, usually featuring glowing eyes in the dark, sent shivers down spines and invited curiosity. As more YouTubers joined in, the Herobrine genre diversified. Some videos leaned heavily into horror, using jump scares, eerie music, and distorted sound effects to heighten the tension. Others took a more comedic approach, parodying the fear while still playing with the myth. Animators created short films where Steve faced off against Herobrine in epic battles, or where Herobrine was portrayed as a mischievous trickster rather than a terrifying ghost. Music videos, parodies of pop songs rewritten to feature Herobrine, also became immensely popular, further cementing his status as a cultural figure. Memes soon followed. Screenshots of suspicious Minecraft terrain, altered with glowing eyes, became punchlines shared across forums and social media. Captions like, "Herobrine was here," or "He's watching," circulated widely, sometimes seriously, sometimes as jokes. These memes spread the myth to people who had never even played Minecraft, making Herobrine a recognizable figure even outside the gaming community. For many, he became shorthand for anything mysterious, creepy, or unexplained in a digital space. Creepypasta websites amplified the effect. Stories about Herobrine were shared alongside other digital horror legends, like haunted Pokemon cartridges or cursed Sonic games. To readers scrolling through those sites late at night, Herobrine stood shoulder to shoulder with other icons of internet horror. His origin as a Minecraft myth gave him a unique edge, because unlike other creepypasta characters, he was tied to a game that millions were actively playing. Anyone could boot up Minecraft and feel the thrill of maybe encountering him, which made the stories feel more real than tales about older, less interactive legends. Herobrine also inspired machinima scripted stories told using Minecraft's engine and characters. Entire series were dedicated to him, some portraying him as a villain with grand schemes, others exploring him as a tragic or misunderstood figure. These series often combined comedy, drama, and action, creating an entire subgenre of Minecraft storytelling. Through machinima, Herobrine became not just a ghost but a character, with motives, dialogue, and personality. He was no longer limited to being a fleeting figure in the fog. He could star in elaborate narratives crafted by the community. As his popularity soared, Herobrine began appearing in merchandise and fan creations. Posters, t-shirts, plush toys, and even unofficial figurines depicted him with his signature blank eyes. Etsy shops sold handcrafted Herobrine-themed jewelry and art prints. Fans drew him in countless styles, from terrifying monster to brooding anti-hero. Some imagined him as a warrior clad in dark armor, others as a spectral presence hovering just out of reach. The sheer variety of depictions highlighted his versatility. As a myth, he could be whatever the artist or storyteller needed him to be. Parodies and jokes often portrayed him as a comically unlucky villain, forever failing to scare players. Animated shorts might show him trying to sneak up on Steve, only to fall into lava or be blown up by a creeper. These humorous takes helped broaden his appeal, making him less frightening and more approachable. Even those who disliked horror could enjoy a good laugh at Herobrine's expense, ensuring his relevance across different audiences. Interestingly, Herobrine also began to bleed into other games and media. Mods for games outside of Minecraft occasionally included references to him, either as Easter eggs or direct characters. In online discussions, players compared him to other gaming myths, such as Missing No from Pokemon or the hidden ghosts in Halo maps. He became part of a broader conversation about the allure of secrets and legends in digital spaces. To mention Herobrine was to tap into a shared cultural knowledge, an inside joke that millions could recognize. Even Mojang itself, despite consistently denying his existence, leaned into the joke by including removed Herobrine in patch notes. This tongue-in-cheek acknowledgement only added fuel to the fire, ensuring that players continued to wonder if he was real. In a sense, Mojang allowed Herobrine to become part of the official culture without ever officially adding him. He was both denied and immortalized, a paradox that made him all the more intriguing. Herobrine also featured heavily in live streams and roleplays. Streamers would create scenarios where they pretended to be haunted by him, screaming as he appeared, or vanishing from the screen mid-broadcast. Chat would explode with reactions, blurring the line between performance and belief. These moments became viral clips, shared and reshared as proof that Herobrine was alive and well. The cultural reach of Herobrine can perhaps best be understood by how his name alone became a kind of shorthand for mystery. To say Herobrine did it was to attribute any glitch, error, or strange occurrence to something larger, something ghostly. Even outside of Minecraft, the phrase was used jokingly across communities. If a strange bug happened in a completely unrelated game, someone in the comments might write, "Herobrine is watching." In that way, he transcended Minecraft entirely, becoming an internet-wide symbol of the unexplained. Schools, too, were places where the legend thrived. Children traded Herobrine stories on playgrounds, daring each other to summon him in their own games. Some claimed their cousins or siblings had seen him. Others swore they knew the exact ritual required to bring him into the world. Teachers overheard conversations about glowing eyes and haunted servers, unaware that they were listening to modern folklore in action. For many kids, Herobrine was their first brush with urban legend, a digital version of Bloody Mary or the Boogeyman. What made Herobrine's cultural presence so powerful was its flexibility. He could be terrifying or funny, tragic or mischievous, real or fake. His identity was never fixed, allowing everyone to project their own fears, hopes, or humor onto him. That adaptability ensured his survival across different platforms and communities. No matter where he appeared, he felt at home, because he was never just one thing. By the time Herobrine reached the height of his popularity, he was more than a rumor. He was a character, a meme, a cultural touchstone. He was a ghost that haunted not just the code of Minecraft, but the imagination of millions, and in that sense, he achieved what few legends ever do. He escaped his origin and became timeless. Herobrine's legend thrived in gameplay and community storytelling, but it was in creative projects that he became immortalized. Players, artists, musicians, and writers all found inspiration in the ghostly figure with white eyes. They transformed him from a rumor whispered on forums into a cultural icon expressed through drawings, animations, parodies, and even music. In this way, Herobrine left the confines of Minecraft's digital world and entered the imagination of millions, living on as both a symbol of mystery and a muse for creativity. Fan art was among the earliest and most enduring ways the community gave Herobrine shape. Within months of his first mentions, forums and fan sites began filling with sketches and digital paintings of the mysterious figure. Artists leaned heavily into his most recognizable feature, the glowing white eyes. Some depicted him simply as the default Steve model with pupils removed, standing silently in the shadows. Others turned him into something far more sinister, exaggerating his form with tattered clothes, claws, and a menacing aura. In every version, the blank eyes conveyed the same sense of emptiness, a window into something inhuman. As the years went on, fan art grew more elaborate. Artists crafted entire scenes of Herobrine lurking in forests, watching from mountains, or confronting players in deep caves. Many works captured the loneliness of his existence, portraying him as a solitary figure in vast, empty landscapes. Others emphasized his power, surrounding him with mobs under his control, or placing him atop thrones of obsidian. Some even humanized him, showing him in quiet moments, staring at the moon or wandering fields, as though he were not a villain but a tragic outcast. These interpretations demonstrated the flexibility of the character. He could be anything the artist wanted, from monster to martyr. Animations took the art one step further. YouTube quickly filled with short films featuring Herobrine, some frightening, others funny. Animators used Minecraft's blocky style to stage eerie encounters, with Herobrine flickering in and out of sight, teleporting, or staring from windows. Many of these videos played with the pacing of horror, building tension through long silences before delivering the shock of his sudden appearance. Others embraced parody, portraying Herobrine as clumsy or misunderstood, fumbling his attempts to haunt players or accidentally scaring pigs instead. These animations gave fans a moving, breathing version of the myth, one they could watch again and again. Music also played a significant role in Herobrine's legacy. Parody songs became especially popular, with creators rewriting the lyrics of famous pop hits to tell the story of the white-eyed ghost. Listeners could find versions of chart-topping songs reimagined as tales of haunted worlds, glowing eyes, and strange tunnels. These tracks often balanced humor with creepiness, ensuring they appealed to a wide audience. Other musicians composed original songs, blending eerie instrumentals with lyrics that captured Herobrine's mystery. Some tracks leaned into electronic beats, echoing the digital origins of the myth, while others took on haunting, acoustic tones, framing him as a ghostly presence drifting through the code. Entire albums of Minecraft-themed music occasionally featured songs dedicated to Herobrine, treating him as a central figure in the lore of the game. Fans listened to these tracks not just for entertainment, but as ways of keeping the legend alive. Singing about Herobrine around a campfire or playing a parody song during a server event became rituals of their own, blending music with myth in ways that echoed traditional folklore. Fan fiction also flourished. Writers spun tales of Herobrine as a villain plotting to take over Minecraft, or as a tragic figure cursed to wander forever. Some stories imagined him as a brother to Notch, echoing the popular theory, while others gave him entirely new origins, a corrupted miner, a forgotten deity, or even a glitch-given consciousness. These stories varied from short vignettes to sprawling sagas, often shared in forums or fan fiction websites, where readers eagerly awaited each new chapter. Through words, Herobrine became not just a fleeting sight, but a character with depth, motives, and history. Comics blended art and storytelling to similar effect. Online strips often depicted players encountering Herobrine in humorous situations, such as mistaking him for a helpful villager or accidentally scaring him away with their own clumsiness. Other comics leaned into darker themes, portraying chilling face-to-face encounters or haunting retellings of his legend. The variety mirrored the dual nature of Herobrine himself. He could inspire fear, laughter, or sympathy depending on the storyteller's intent. What's remarkable about these creative projects is how global they were. Players from around the world contributed art, music, and writing, each bringing their own cultural spin to the legend. In some regions, Herobrine was portrayed as a vengeful spirit, echoing local folklore about ghosts and restless souls. In others, he was treated more like a trickster, mischievous but not malicious. This diversity ensured that the legend never stagnated. Each contribution kept him alive, adding new dimensions to his identity. Herobrine also appeared in role plays and live performances. Some YouTubers staged scripted dramas in Minecraft worlds, portraying themselves as heroes battling Herobrine or villagers living in fear of his return. These role plays often had multiple episodes, drawing viewers into long-running narratives where Herobrine was a recurring antagonist. For audiences, watching these series was like following a digital television show, one where the villain was already a cultural icon. Even outside of direct storytelling, Herobrine inspired creativity in more subtle ways. Cosplayers dressed as him at conventions, donning blocky heads and glowing contact lenses. Halloween costumes of Herobrine appeared, both official and homemade. Some fans even built physical shrines, using Lego or other building blocks to recreate his supposed altars. These physical expressions of the legend showed just how deeply he had embedded himself into popular imagination. The creative projects also ensured that new generations discovered Herobrine. A child might stumble upon a parody song or an animated short years after the initial wave of sightings, and through that content, learn the legend for the first time. In this way, Herobrine's story was constantly renewed, never tied to a single era. His image passed from older players to younger ones, carried by art and music rather than just forum posts. The sheer volume of Herobrine-inspired content speaks to his power as a cultural figure. He was not officially part of Minecraft, and yet he inspired more art, music, and stories than many characters created intentionally by game developers. This paradox that something not real could inspire so much real creativity is at the heart of his legacy. It proves that legends do not need official validation to matter. They need only imagination and the willingness of people to share them. And so, across countless drawings, songs, comics, and stories, Herobrine continues to live. He is not bound by Mojang's denials or patch notes. He exists wherever players imagine him, wherever they sketch his glowing eyes or sing his haunting name. He is, in a very real sense, immortal. Herobrine may be one of the most famous figures to emerge from Minecraft, but his story is part of a larger tradition of myths and legends born from video games and the internet. Just as ghost stories once spread around campfires, digital tales now travel through forums, videos, and whispers between players. Herobrine belongs to this lineage, alongside mysterious characters like Missing No from Pokemon, Ben Drowned from The Legend of Zelda, and the faceless entity known as Slender Man. By comparing Herobrine to these other myths, we can see why he resonated so strongly and why digital folklore has become so important in modern storytelling. Missing No, short for Missing Number, is one of the earliest and most famous examples of a video game glitch becoming legend. In the Pokemon games of the late 1990s, players discovered that by following a very specific sequence of steps, they could encounter a strange, blocky figure not intended to be in the game. This creature, Missing No, looked like scrambled pixels, as though the game itself had broken. Catching it could cause odd effects, like multiplying items or glitching graphics. Some players feared it would ruin their save file, while others were fascinated by its chaotic power. Though Missing No was not a ghost story in the same sense as Herobrine, it tapped into the same feeling. The idea that hidden within the game was something not meant to be seen, something outside the rules that the developers had intended. Herobrine carried a similar aura, but instead of being a glitch, he was imagined as a ghost. Both myths blurred the line between code and mystery, reminding players that games are made of systems so complex they can sometimes feel alive. Where Missing No was a corrupted mess of data, Herobrine was a character with intent, as though he was watching the player and choosing his moments to appear. The difference was subtle but important. Missing No was unsettling because it was accidental. Herobrine was terrifying because he seemed deliberate. Another important comparison is Ben Drowned, a creepypasta based on The Legend of Zelda, Majora's Mask. In this story, a player buys a used copy of the game, only to discover that the save file has a disturbing name, Ben. As the player continues, the game becomes haunted, with eerie glitches, reversed music, and disturbing events that suggest the cartridge is cursed by the spirit of a boy named Ben. The story unfolds like a diary, with the narrator posting updates about increasingly sinister happenings, until the line between game and reality begins to blur. Ben Drowned became one of the most influential gaming creepypastas, and its success paved the way for Herobrine's myth to be taken seriously. Ben Drowned and Herobrine share much in common. Both involve a seemingly ordinary game suddenly becoming a stage for something supernatural. Both rely on the idea of being watched, manipulated, or haunted by an entity hidden within the game, and both spread because of the internet's unique ability to share stories that feel real, even when they are not. Players who read about Herobrine's glowing eyes could not help but wonder, what if he appeared in my game? The same was true for readers of Ben Drowned, who found themselves nervously checking their own cartridges, just in case. Then there is Slender Man, perhaps the most famous internet-born myth of the early 2000s. Slender Man originated from photoshopped images on a forum, showing a tall, faceless man lurking in the background of ordinary pictures. From there, the legend exploded, inspiring stories, games, and even real-world consequences. Unlike Missing No or Ben Drowned, Slender Man was not tied to a specific game, but he shared with Herobrine the same qualities of vagueness and universality. Slender Man could appear anywhere, just as Herobrine could appear in any Minecraft world. Both figures were unsettling precisely because they were so undefined. Their blank features Slender Man's face. Herobrine's eyes left room for imagination to fill in the horror. The connection between these myths highlights how players and internet users collectively build modern folklore. In earlier times, myths might have explained natural events or warned of dangers in the woods. In the digital age, myths like Herobrine explain the mysteries of code, the hidden corners of games, and the feeling that something greater than the player might be lurking. They are not warnings about wild animals or spirits in the forest, but about secrets in the systems we spend so much time exploring. Herobrine also stands out for his longevity. Missing No was fascinating, but once players understood it was a glitch, much of the mystery faded. Ben Drowned was chilling, but it was ultimately a single story, finite in its telling. Slender Man grew into a massive cultural phenomenon, but he also became so widespread that his fear wore down over time. Herobrine, however, lived in a unique space. Because Minecraft was a sandbox game with infinite worlds, there was always the possibility of him appearing in yours. Unlike a specific story or a specific glitch, Herobrine was universal. He was not bound to one seed, one map, or one cartridge. He could be anywhere, and that possibility ensured he never faded away. Another interesting comparison is Polybius, a supposed arcade game from the early 1980s. According to legend, Polybius was a mysterious machine that appeared in select arcades, causing strange psychological effects in those who played it. The story claimed that men in black would collect data from the machines, and that the game itself vanished without a trace. Though widely regarded as a hoax, Polybius became a staple of gaming urban legends, inspiring documentaries, fan recreations, and references in pop culture. Like Herobrine, Polybius represented the idea that games could hide something sinister beneath their surface, and that players might stumble upon something not meant for them. These myths reveal a pattern. Humans are drawn to stories of hidden dangers in familiar places. Just as ghost stories thrive because they make us question the safety of our homes, gaming myths thrive because they make us question the safety of our digital worlds. Minecraft is usually a safe, creative space, full of blocks and adventures, but with Herobrine, suddenly the world felt unsafe, watched, and haunted. That inversion of comfort into fear is what made the myth so powerful. Herobrine's comparison to these legends also shows the power of ambiguity. None of these myths provide full answers. Missing No is unexplained code. Ben Drowned ends with uncertainty. Slender Man has no clear origin or motives. Polybius may or may not have existed. Herobrine fits perfectly into this pattern. Never fully confirmed, never fully denied, always balanced between possibility and impossibility. This balance keeps the imagination alive, long after a straightforward story would fade. By placing Herobrine alongside these figures, we can appreciate how he is both unique and familiar. He is unique in being tied to Minecraft, a game defined by creativity rather than horror, which makes his presence all the more jarring. And yet, he is familiar because he echoes the same fears and curiosities that drive all urban legends. He belongs to a tradition older than video games themselves, the tradition of wondering what might lurk just beyond our understanding. And so, as we drift through the myth of Herobrine, it is comforting to know that he stands among other figures in the hall of digital folklore. He is a brother to Missing No, a cousin to Ben Drowned, a kindred spirit to Slender Man, and a modern echo of Polybius. Each of these legends tells us something about ourselves, our need for mystery, our love of the unknown, and our tendency to turn the things we do not understand into stories that live on. Herobrine did not stay confined to whispers on forums or pixelated screenshots. As the legend grew, he became a central character in one of the most powerful engines of internet creativity at the time, YouTube. The rise of Minecraft coincided with the rise of YouTube as a platform for storytelling, and together they created the perfect stage for myths like Herobrine to thrive. Through machinima, roleplays, parodies, and full-length series, players brought Herobrine to life in ways that far exceeded the simple text posts where his story began. He became a villain, a trickster, a god, and even sometimes a misunderstood figure, depending on the imagination of the creator. Machinima, the art of making films within video games, was one of the first mediums to showcase Herobrine. Early creators used Minecraft's blocky environments as sets, positioning characters like actors and capturing scenes to tell stories. In these early films, Herobrine often appeared as a silent menace, lurking in the distance or teleporting ominously behind characters. The simplicity of the visuals made these moments especially unsettling. When all the characters looked the same, a sudden figure with glowing white eyes felt wrong, out of place, and therefore frightening. These machinima gave audiences the sense that Herobrine could appear at any moment, just as unpredictable as the rumors suggested. One popular style of video was the jump scare format. A player would record themselves exploring a cave or forest, narrating calmly, until suddenly Herobrine's face would flash on screen, accompanied by eerie sound effects. These short, startling videos were shared widely, especially among younger audiences who loved both the thrill and the humor of scaring their friends. In this way, Herobrine became not just a legend but a digital ghost story, perfect for pranks and shared experiences. Other videos took a slower, narrative-driven approach. Entire series were dedicated to hunting Herobrine, with episodes documenting supposed signs of his presence, pyramids in the sand, mysterious tunnels, or animals with glowing eyes. Creators would build suspense by showing footage of these oddities, then cutting to dramatic music as Herobrine appeared on the horizon. Whether or not the footage was staged hardly mattered. What mattered was that viewers felt the thrill of the hunt, the possibility that this time the legend might be real. Roleplay series became another powerful form of Herobrine storytelling. Groups of players would design scripts or improvise storylines in which Herobrine was a central antagonist. Some of these roleplays resembled television dramas, with multiple episodes following a consistent plot arc. Herobrine might begin as a distant threat, then grow more aggressive, eventually confronting the players in climactic battles. Viewers followed these stories week after week, eager to see what role Herobrine would play next. These roleplays transformed him from a vague rumor into a fully fleshed character with personality and intent. Parody content also flourished. Just as artists sometimes portrayed Herobrine as tragic, rather than terrifying. YouTube creators often leaned into comedy. In these parodies, Herobrine might be shown failing at scaring players, bumbling through his supposed hauntings, or being mistaken for an ordinary Steve. These lighter portrayals gave fans a way to engage with the legend without the fear, turning him into a character as versatile as he was mysterious. In this sense, Herobrine became part of the broader culture of Minecraft humor, standing alongside creepers and villagers as recognizable figures to joke about. One of the most striking aspects of YouTube's role in Herobrine's legacy was how collaborative it was. Many creators borrowed from one another, remixing footage, adding commentary, or expanding on existing ideas. A single screenshot of Herobrine might inspire dozens of videos, each interpreting it differently. This web of connections ensured that Herobrine remained relevant across countless channels and communities. Even creators who admitted they did not believe in the myth still used him as material, knowing that audiences were fascinated by the story. Music videos became another cornerstone of Herobrine's YouTube presence. Using Minecraft's blocky animations, creators produced original songs or parodies that told Herobrine's story. These videos combined catchy tunes with haunting imagery, often showing Herobrine watching from cliffs or walking through villages. Some songs painted him as a villain to be feared, while others portrayed him as a lonely figure wandering the endless world. These musical interpretations reached millions of viewers, embedding Herobrine not just in gameplay but in the soundtracks of fans' lives. As Minecraft itself grew, so too did the ambition of Herobrine-themed content. Some creators built entire custom maps designed to tell stories about him. These maps included scripted events, redstone contraptions, and hidden rooms meant to simulate an encounter with the legend. Players could download these maps and experience their own hauntings, ensuring that Herobrine was not limited to passive viewing but could be explored firsthand. This interactive element deepened the myth, giving fans the sensation of stepping directly into the folklore. What makes this wave of creativity remarkable is how much of it came from ordinary players. Unlike official characters created by Mojang, Herobrine belonged to the community. Anyone could make a Herobrine video, draw him, or write a story. There was no single correct version, no canon to adhere to. This freedom encouraged experimentation and ensured that the legend could grow in countless directions at once. The result was a vast tapestry of interpretations, all feeding back into the central myth of the white-eyed ghost. In many ways, YouTube served as the new campfire around which the legend was told. Where once ghost stories were spoken in the dark, now they were uploaded as videos, shared through links, and watched late at night on glowing screens. The format was different, but the purpose was the same: to thrill, to unsettle, and to connect people through shared mystery. Herobrine thrived in this environment, becoming one of the most well-known digital campfire stories of the modern age. And just as campfire stories often change with each retelling, so too did Herobrine's tale shift with each new video. In one, he was a villain; in another, a tragic figure; in yet another, the butt of a joke. Each version added something new, keeping the legend alive and ever-changing. This adaptability is one reason Herobrine has endured for so long. He is not fixed in place, but fluid, able to be whatever the storyteller needs him to be. As viewers drifted from one video to the next, the myth of Herobrine deepened in their minds. Even those who knew he was not real within the game could not help but feel a chill when exploring a dark cave alone, remembering the countless videos where glowing white eyes suddenly appeared in the shadows. The creativity of the community ensured that Herobrine lived not just in the game's code but in the imaginations of players everywhere. In this way, YouTube and Machinima transformed Herobrine from a rumor into a legend. They gave him form, voice, and narrative. They ensured that he would not be forgotten, but instead woven into the culture of Minecraft and the internet itself. And as long as those videos remain online, waiting to be rediscovered by new generations, Herobrine will continue to haunt the digital world not because of what Mojang coded, but because of what the community created. For many children growing up in the 2000s and early 2010s, Minecraft was more than just a game. It was a world of endless creativity, of building, exploring, and sharing adventures with friends. Yet, woven into that comforting, blocky world was a whisper of something darker, the legend of Herobrine. For young players, encountering the myth was almost a rite of passage. It was a story passed around playgrounds, whispered during sleepovers, and tested during long evenings spent mining in pixelated caves. Whether they believed in him or not, every child who played Minecraft eventually heard the name, and that name carried with it a strange mix of fear, fascination, and excitement. Children are natural storytellers, and Herobrine fit perfectly into the kinds of tales they love to tell. His legend was simple enough to share quickly: a mysterious figure with glowing white eyes who sometimes appeared in your world, leaving strange structures behind. Yet it was also vague enough to spark endless speculation. Some said he was a ghost, others a hacker, others a glitch. This flexibility allowed each child to tailor the story to their own imagination, and soon enough, entire playgrounds buzzed with competing versions of who Herobrine really was. The myth often spread like wildfire among groups of friends. One child might claim to have seen Herobrine in their world, describing the glowing eyes they spotted in the fog. Another would insist that their older sibling had warned them never to dig too deep in caves, because that was where he lurked. These claims were rarely challenged. Instead, they were absorbed into the growing lore, as each child added their own piece to the puzzle. In this way, Herobrine became not just a myth, but a communal game of imagination, one that stretched far beyond the confines of the screen. Sleepovers often became the stage for retelling Herobrine's story. In the dim glow of a console or computer monitor, with friends gathered close, one child would begin recounting the legend, their voice hushed for dramatic effect. They would describe the eerie silence of the forest, the sudden appearance of glowing eyes, the strange tunnels leading nowhere. As they spoke, their friends would shiver and lean in, caught between disbelief and the delicious thrill of fear. Much like ghost stories told around a campfire, these retellings bound children together, turning the myth into a shared experience. For younger players, the myth also added a sense of danger to Minecraft itself. Without Herobrine, the game was primarily creative and peaceful, with dangers like zombies or skeletons easily managed by players. But with the thought of Herobrine lurking, every cave and forest suddenly carried new weight. Was that flicker in the shadows just bad lighting, or was it something more? Was that tunnel naturally generated, or had someone or something built it? Even the most mundane parts of the game became charged with possibility. This subtle transformation made the game feel larger, as though it contained mysteries far beyond what Mojang had intended. Parents often noticed how deeply the legend affected their children. Some spoke of their kids refusing to play alone, insisting on having siblings or friends nearby just in case Herobrine appeared. Others told of children leaving lights on at night after hearing the story, their imaginations too vivid to set aside. Yet, for most, the fear was balanced by fascination. Herobrine was scary, yes, But he was also exciting. He gave children a story to puzzle over, a mystery to solve, and a way to bond with peers. Schools became another hub for Herobrine lore. At recess, children might act out encounters, pretending to be miners exploring caves while one of them played the role of Herobrine, silently stalking the others. In art classes, drawings of blocky landscapes with glowing eyes hidden in the corners appeared on paper. Even classroom conversations occasionally turned to debates about whether Herobrine was real, with children citing YouTube videos, forum posts, or the word of an older cousin as proof. These debates rarely reached resolution, but that was part of the magic. The uncertainty kept the story alive. The internet amplified the myth for young audiences. YouTube videos claiming to show real sightings were watched obsessively, often replayed frame by frame to catch every detail. Children who lacked the technical knowledge to recognize staged footage accepted what they saw at face value, deepening their belief. Even those who suspected trickery often played along, unwilling to be the one who spoiled the fun for their friends. In this way, belief in Herobrine became less about truth and more about participation. To be part of the community was to acknowledge the myth, even if only half seriously. Interestingly, Herobrine's legend often served as an introduction to broader concepts of digital folklore for children. Before they encountered myths like Slender Man or Ben Drowned, many first grappled with the question of what is real and what is imagined through the story of Herobrine. The process of hearing the story, testing it in their own games, and eventually learning about its origins mirrored the way humans have always engaged with myths. It was a training ground for skepticism, curiosity, and storytelling all at once. Herobrine also shaped how children interacted with Minecraft itself. Some would deliberately seek him out, exploring caves at night or building strange structures in hopes of attracting him. Others would avoid certain areas entirely, convinced that they were haunted. This blend of seeking and avoiding reflected the dual emotions the myth inspired, fear and fascination in equal measure. In the end, Herobrine turned Minecraft into something more than a game. It became a stage for imagination, a place where folklore could grow alongside code. Even as children grew older, many carried fond memories of their Herobrine years. What once frightened them became a nostalgic part of their gaming childhood, remembered with laughter rather than fear. For some, he was the first ghost story they ever believed in, the first taste of digital mystery. For others, he was simply a way to bond with friends, a story that made their hours in Minecraft feel more magical. In either case, the impact was lasting. Herobrine was not just a character in a myth. He was a shared cultural experience, one that shaped how an entire generation approached games, stories, and imagination. And so, for children, Herobrine was more than just a rumor in a blocky world. He was a rite of passage, a story that every young player encountered and passed along. He was a bridge between play and folklore, between code and imagination. Through him, Minecraft became not just a game of building and exploring, but a game of storytelling, where even the shadows might hold secrets, and every glowing eye could signal the presence of something unknown. As the Herobrine legend spread across forums, YouTube, and playgrounds, players began to realize that the myth was not only a story to tell, but a challenge to pursue. If Herobrine was truly lurking in the shadows of Minecraft worlds, then surely he could be found, documented, and maybe even defeated. This mindset gave birth to a phenomenon that became known among fans as Herobrine hunting. Groups of players dedicated themselves to exploring every corner of their worlds, documenting every strange occurrence, and sharing their findings with the community. These hunts transformed the myth from a passive rumor into an active quest, one that united countless players in the pursuit of the unknown. The earliest Herobrine hunters often worked alone. Inspired by forum posts or YouTube sightings, these players would venture into their single-player worlds and comb through caves, forests, and mountains for any sign of the mysterious figure. They would record hours of footage, hoping for even a fleeting glimpse of glowing white eyes. Many of these early hunts ended with disappointment, but that never dampened the hunters' spirits. For them, the search was as much a part of the fun as the possibility of success. Even when no evidence emerged, the eerie atmosphere of a midnight mining session carried its own thrill. Soon, however, Herobrine hunting became a group activity. Multiplayer servers hosted events where players would band together to scour landscapes, sharing stories of what they found. Some servers even set up specific rules, encouraging participants to split into teams, map unexplored territory, and report back on anything unusual. The excitement was contagious, and players who might otherwise have dismissed the myth found themselves caught up in the thrill of the hunt. The idea of working together toward a common goal, even one built on rumor, gave these hunts a communal spirit that mirrored traditional folklore rituals. Herobrine hunters often created elaborate strategies. Some believed that building certain structures, like pyramids or totems made of gold and netherrack, could summon him. Others thought that wandering deep into caves or leaving torches in specific patterns would attract his attention. These rituals were shared widely online, with players posting screenshots of their creations and reporting whether or not they had seen results. While no definitive summoning ever occurred, the rituals themselves became part of the legend, adding layers of mystery to Herobrine's lore. Documenting the hunts was just as important as conducting them. Hunters frequently recorded their gameplay, uploading videos of their expeditions to YouTube. These videos often followed a familiar pattern: a group of players wandering through landscapes, discovering something unusual, perhaps a perfectly cut tunnel, a floating block, or a pyramid in the sand, and then reacting with excitement or fear. Even if Herobrine never appeared, the hunts themselves were entertaining to watch. Viewers enjoyed the suspense, the camaraderie among players, and the possibility that this time the myth might be proven true. Over time, entire YouTube channels dedicated themselves to Herobrine hunting. Some focused on compiling evidence of sightings, while others embraced the role of skeptics, debunking claims and analyzing videos for signs of editing. This dynamic created a lively community where believers and skeptics debated endlessly, each side fueling the legend's growth. For believers, the skeptics only made the hunt more exciting after all, proving Herobrine's existence against the odds would be all the sweeter. For skeptics, the thrill came from unraveling the tricks and revealing how clever editing or world manipulation could create the illusion of a haunting. Servers designed specifically around Herobrine hunting also began to emerge. These custom worlds included scripted events, redstone contraptions, and hidden builds meant to simulate encounters with the myth. Players could join these servers and experience the thrill of seeing glowing eyes in the distance or stumbling upon eerie structures. While these hunts were staged, many players enjoyed them just as much as the real ones. They offered a way to step directly into the folklore, experiencing the legend firsthand in a controlled environment. Interestingly, the rise of Herobrine hunters also influenced how some people played the game outside of official hunts. Players who mined alone often adopted the same cautious behavior they saw in hunting videos, double-checking caves or scanning the horizon for suspicious figures. In this sense, The hunting culture blurred into ordinary gameplay, making the myth feel even more real. Whether or not they participated in formal hunts, many players felt they were part of the same ongoing search. The phenomenon of Herobrine hunters also mirrored older traditions in human culture. Just as communities once held ghost hunts or searched for cryptids like Bigfoot, Minecraft players organized digital hunts for their own elusive figure. These parallels were not lost on participants, who often joked about being paranormal investigators in blocky form. The myth tapped into a universal human instinct, the desire to seek out the unknown, to turn fear into adventure, and to bond with others through shared mystery. Some hunts even turned into competitions. Servers would host events where teams competed to gather the most evidence of Herobrine's presence within a set time limit. Judges would evaluate screenshots, structures, or unusual phenomena, awarding prizes to the most convincing or creative submissions. These competitions blurred the line between genuine belief and playful performance, but they always reinforced the central idea: Herobrine was worth seeking, whether or not he was ever truly found. As years passed, the energy around Herobrine hunting shifted, but it never disappeared. What began as earnest attempts to prove his existence evolved into a form of community storytelling. Players knew that the odds of encountering Herobrine in an official game were slim to none, but the act of searching still carried value. It gave them a reason to explore, to share stories, and to participate in a tradition that stretched back to the earliest days of the legend. Herobrine hunters helped keep the myth alive, passing it from one generation of players to the next. Even when Mojang repeatedly denied his existence, even when skeptics debunked countless sightings, the hunters continued their quests. In doing so, they demonstrated something profound about the nature of folklore. It is not about proof or evidence, but about the stories we tell, the rituals we perform, and the bonds we form along the way. Herobrine may never have been real in the game's code, but in the hearts of his hunters, he was as real as any ghost haunting the woods. Herobrine's story may have begun in the earliest years of Minecraft, but his influence did not fade as the game continued to grow. Instead, he became a kind of shadow companion to every update, lurking in the background as Mojang introduced new features, biomes, and mobs. Though the developers consistently denied his existence, they also leaned into the myth in ways both subtle and direct, ensuring that Herobrine remained part of the conversation. For players, this playful relationship between community rumor and official acknowledgement turned Herobrine into something far greater than a simple ghost story. He became a permanent thread, woven through the history of Minecraft itself. One of the clearest examples of Mojang's acknowledgement came through patch notes. Starting in the early 2010s, update logs began to include a curious recurring line: removed Herobrine. At first glance, it seemed like a joke, a wink to the community that had long debated his existence. But the more times the line appeared, the more it cemented itself as a tradition. Each time a new version of Minecraft was released, players scanned the notes eagerly, looking to see whether the phrase would appear again. Sometimes it did, sometimes it didn't, but its very presence reminded players that Mojang was aware of the myth and willing to play along. This recurring note created a strange paradox. On one hand, it was an outright denial. Herobrine was never in the game, therefore there was nothing to remove. On the other hand, it was an acknowledgement that the legend was too important to ignore. By including the phrase, Mojang kept the myth alive, even as they dismissed it. It was a delicate balance, one that showcased the developer's understanding of folklore. They knew that myths do not need to be real to matter, and that by feeding the story in small, playful ways, they could keep players engaged without ever officially confirming anything. As Minecraft evolved, the myth adapted alongside it. New biomes, such as jungles, mesas, and oceans, became fresh backdrops for Herobrine sightings. Players began to claim that he had expanded his hauntings, no longer confined to forests and caves, but now lurking in deserts, temples, and even underwater ruins. Each new addition to the game gave storytellers more material to work with, and soon Herobrine was said to have built fortresses, left cryptic patterns in coral, or stalked players through bamboo forests. The myth grew as the world grew, ensuring that Herobrine was always present, even in spaces Mojang had only just created. Mods also helped carry Herobrine into the modern game. While Mojang refused to add him officially, countless community modders introduced their own versions of the ghost. Some mods made Herobrine a hostile mob who could attack players, building strange structures and spawning minions to do his bidding. Others leaned into atmosphere, creating eerie sightings where Herobrine would appear in the distance, watch silently, then vanish. These mods allowed players to experience the legend firsthand, blending folklore with code to create haunting encounters. Even as the base game moved forward, mods ensured that Herobrine remained a playable part of the experience. Servers also continued to embrace the myth. Some built entire narratives around Herobrine, crafting adventure maps where players had to survive his attacks or uncover his secrets. Others hosted special events, like seasonal hunts or challenges themed around his legend. By incorporating Herobrine into their communities, server owners kept the story relevant for new generations of players. Children who had never read the original forum posts still encountered his name on servers, ensuring that the myth passed seamlessly from one era to the next. What makes Herobrine especially remarkable is how he has outlasted the usual lifespan of gaming myths. Most rumors fade once they are debunked or explained, but Herobrine remains resilient. Part of this resilience comes from the way Mojang handled him, never officially confirming, never fully erasing, always leaving just enough ambiguity for doubt to linger. Another part comes from the community itself, which has treated him less as a rumor to be proven and more as a story to be told. As long as people enjoy sharing tales of glowing white eyes in the dark, Herobrine will never truly disappear. In modern updates, where Minecraft has grown into an expansive universe with villages, strongholds, and even alternate dimensions, Herobrine remains strangely timeless. He is not tied to any one feature or mechanic. He is not a boss like the Ender Dragon or a challenge like the Wither. He exists outside of the normal rules, a presence that could theoretically fit anywhere. This timeless quality makes him adaptable, able to haunt every version of the game no matter how much it changes. Whether you are mining diamonds in the depths of the Caves and Cliffs update, or exploring the vibrant landscapes of newer biomes, the idea of Herobrine still fits watching, waiting, just out of sight. Interestingly, Mojang has occasionally used Herobrine in official jokes outside of patch notes as well. On April Fool's Day updates, when the developers released playful versions of the game with silly mechanics, subtle references to Herobrine sometimes appeared. These moments reinforce the idea that, while he may not be real, he is still part of Minecraft's DNA. By including him in their humor, Mojang effectively canonized him as a cultural figure, even if not a coded one. The persistence of Herobrine in modern times also highlights how myths can take on lives of their own, independent of their origins. New players, especially children, often encounter the story not through old forum posts but through YouTube, TikTok, or server events. To them, Herobrine is not a relic of the past, but a living legend, still relevant and still haunting the game they love. This generational handoff ensures that the myth is constantly renewed, with each wave of players putting their own spin on the story. For many, the most fascinating part of Herobrine's legacy is that he has become an unofficial mascot of mystery in Minecraft. Just as creepers symbolize surprise and danger, Herobrine symbolizes the unknown. He represents the possibility that there are still secrets hidden in the code, still corners of the world unexplored. In a game defined by discovery, this symbolic role is powerful. It keeps the sense of wonder alive, reminding players that no matter how much they know, there might always be something more. In this way, Herobrine has become less about fear and more about imagination. While early stories painted him as a terrifying figure, modern interpretations often treat him as a symbol of creativity, a reminder of how communities can build entire legends from the smallest seeds. He is not just a ghost in the code, but a testament to the power of storytelling in digital spaces. Whether he is seen as a villain, a prank, or a cultural icon, Herobrine endures because he belongs to the players themselves. And so, as Minecraft continues to update and expand, Herobrine remains. He is not in the code, not in the official mobs, not in the mechanics, but he is in the patch notes, in the mods, in the servers, and most importantly, in the imaginations of millions of players. His legacy proves that myths do not need to be true to be real. They live not in data, but in the stories we tell, and in that sense, Herobrine will always haunt Minecraft, no matter how many times Mojang says they have removed him. Herobrine's story did not stay confined within the blocky walls of Minecraft. As his legend spread, it began to seep into the broader culture of the internet, intertwining with creepypasta, horror stories, and digital folklore. In many ways, Herobrine became a blueprint for how communities could take a small, simple rumor and transform it into a sprawling myth. His legacy extends far beyond the game itself, influencing the way people think about storytelling online and how myths evolve in digital spaces. One of the most important aspects of Herobrine's cultural impact is his connection to creepypasta. During the early 2010s, creepypasta was at the height of its popularity. Stories like Slender Man, Jeff the Killer, and Smile Dog were circulating widely, shared in forums, read aloud in videos, and adapted into games. Herobrine joined this pantheon of internet horror figures, not as an outsider but as one of the most natural additions. His story had all the hallmarks of creepypasta: an eerie, unexplained presence, unsettling imagery, mysterious origins, and a community that fueled speculation. Unlike other creepypasta figures, though, Herobrine was linked directly to a game that millions of people were already playing, giving him a unique level of accessibility. Players did not just read about him, they could enter Minecraft and convince themselves they might encounter him personally. This interactivity gave Herobrine's myth more staying power than many other creepypasta characters. Slender Man, for instance, required new games and adaptations to stay relevant, while Herobrine lived inside a sandbox that millions of players already explored daily. Every cave, every forest, every foggy night had the potential to be a stage for Herobrine sightings. Because of this, the line between story and experience blurred in powerful ways. Players felt like they were not just hearing a story but living it. This participatory nature of the myth helped Herobrine endure while other internet monsters faded. Herobrine also demonstrated how folklore can thrive in digital communities. Traditional folklore often involves oral storytelling, passed from generation to generation, with each retelling adding new details. In the digital age, this process happens online, with forums, YouTube videos, TikToks, and Discord chats replacing campfires and town squares. Herobrine became a textbook example of this process. One person's story about seeing strange tunnels could spark another person's claim of witnessing glowing eyes, which in turn inspired videos, mods, and entire server events. Each contribution built on the last, creating a sprawling, ever-evolving legend. Another unique aspect of Herobrine's myth is how it blurred the boundary between official content and fan invention. Mojang's playful acknowledgments, like the removed Herobrine patch notes, gave the legend an unusual legitimacy. Unlike other creepypasta characters who existed entirely outside of official narratives, Herobrine occupied a liminal space. He was not in the game, yet the developers referenced him just enough to keep players guessing. This tension between denial and acknowledgement made him feel more real than other internet legends. Players could point to official documents and argue that maybe, just maybe, the story was true. As the myth grew, Herobrine became a symbol of internet creativity. He inspired fan art, comics, music, and animations, many of which went viral in their own right. YouTube animators produced entire series about him, imagining elaborate backstories or battles between Herobrine and Steve. Musicians wrote songs about his haunting presence, often blending eerie melodies with pounding beats to capture the tension he inspired. Artists across platforms reimagined him in countless forms, from a shadowy ghost to a tragic anti-hero. These creations extended his story far beyond the original rumor, transforming him into a fully fleshed-out character in the shared imagination of the community. The persistence of Herobrine also speaks to a broader truth about how humans use myths to make sense of the unknown. In the early days of Minecraft, the game's vast and unexplored worlds were full of mystery. Strange generation glitches, unexplained noises, or sudden crashes could all be woven into the story of Herobrine. Instead of viewing these quirks as simple bugs, players used folklore to explain them. In this way, Herobrine served the same role that myths have played for centuries. He was a story that helped people give meaning to the mysterious and unexplained. The difference was that this time, the myth was digital. Even outside of Minecraft, Herobrine's influence spread into other games and online communities. Some modders and developers added subtle nods to him in their projects, referencing glowing white eyes or mysterious NPCs. He became a shorthand for the idea of a hidden figure in the code, a ghost in the machine. In this sense, Herobrine transcended Minecraft, becoming part of a larger cultural language. To reference him was to invoke not just a specific story, but the entire concept of digital folklore. The parallels between Herobrine and Slender Man are especially striking. Both emerged around the same time. Both were born from community creativity, and both spread through online sharing. But where Slender Man eventually faded into darker controversies, Herobrine maintained a more playful, mysterious aura. His story remained rooted in curiosity and imagination rather than fear alone. While some versions of his myth painted him as sinister, others treated him almost as a guardian or tragic figure. This flexibility made him more versatile, able to adapt to different moods and audiences. As internet culture shifted toward video content, Herobrine found new life on platforms like YouTube and TikTok. Streamers and content creators staged elaborate sightings, often editing their footage to show glowing eyes in the distance or eerie structures left behind. For younger audiences, many of whom were encountering the myth for the first time, these videos became proof that Herobrine was real. Even if older players knew the trick, the sense of mystery remained powerful for newcomers. The cycle repeated with each new generation, ensuring that the story never grew stale. Herobrine's role in education and storytelling is also worth noting. Teachers and parents sometimes use the myth as an example when discussing how stories spread online. He became a case study in digital literacy, showing how rumors can spread, mutate, and endure even without evidence. In this sense, Herobrine became more than a piece of entertainment. He became a teaching tool, illustrating the mechanics of folklore in the digital age. Today, more than a decade after his first appearance in Rumor, Herobrine remains one of the most enduring figures in gaming folklore. His story continues to inspire creators, entertain players, and fuel debates. More importantly, he represents the potential of internet culture to create myths that feel as real and powerful as those told for centuries. Just as ancient cultures created gods, spirits, and monsters to explain the mysteries of their world, modern communities have created Herobrine to give shape to the mysteries of digital space. Ultimately, Herobrine's influence goes far beyond Minecraft itself. He is not just a ghost in one game, but a symbol of how humans continue to create and share myths in the 21st century. He demonstrates that even in an age of advanced technology, we still crave stories that blur the line between real and imagined. Whether seen as a horror figure, a cultural icon, or a playful community joke, Herobrine endures because he fills a timeless role, the role of the unknown, waiting in the shadows, reminding us that there is always more to discover. As we come to the end of this long journey through Herobrine's legend, it becomes clear that his story is far more than a tale of glowing white eyes or mysterious structures in the woods. Herobrine is a living example of how myths form, adapt, and endure in digital spaces. He is not just a phantom said to wander blocky landscapes. He is the sum of countless imaginations, each retelling, each claim, each screenshot, and each whispered story adding another layer to his myth. And in this way, Herobrine is not confined to Minecraft alone. He lives in the memories of players, in the culture of the internet, and in the spark of curiosity that makes us wonder what might be hiding just beyond what we know. What makes Herobrine so special is his ambiguity. Mojang never confirmed his existence, but they never fully erased him either. Each patch note that jokingly declared, "removed Herobrine," added another wink to the story, keeping him alive in the minds of millions. This delicate dance between denial and acknowledgement created the perfect environment for the myth to grow. If Mojang had firmly denied him and never mentioned him again, perhaps the story would have faded. If they had added him officially, the mystery would have ended. But by keeping him in that strange middle ground, they allowed him to flourish as a figure of folklore neither real nor fake, neither present nor absent, but something in between. Herobrine also reminds us of the power of community. His story was never dictated from above, never written into the code of the game. It was crafted by the players themselves, in forums, in videos, in conversations between friends. Each person who told the story helped shape it, ensuring that it never had a single, fixed version. In this way, Herobrine belongs to everyone. He is a shared creation, a digital campfire tale passed from one player to another, and that is why he endures, because the community keeps him alive, generation after generation, update after update. Another reason Herobrine's story resonates so deeply is because it connects with something timeless inside us. Humans have always told stories about shadows, spirits, and figures who watch from the edges of our world. Long before video games, people spoke of ghosts in the woods, strange lights in the sky, or faces glimpsed in the dark. Herobrine is part of this long tradition. He is the modern version of the campfire ghost story, updated for the digital age. Instead of haunted castles, he lurks in mine shafts. Instead of forests filled with wolves, he inhabits pixelated landscapes of birch and oak. But the feeling he inspires, that shiver of uncertainty, that thrill of possibility, is the same. He is proof that even in our technological world, we still crave mystery. Herobrine's endurance also speaks to the beauty of Minecraft itself. Minecraft is a game of infinite worlds, each one generated fresh and unique. With so much possibility, it is natural that players imagine secrets hiding within. Herobrine became the embodiment of that possibility, the idea that something unknown might still be waiting to be discovered. Every strange noise in a cave, every odd structure, every glitch became evidence, not of code, but of myth. He turned the act of exploring into something more than survival or building. He turned it into a search for stories. That is perhaps his greatest gift. He made the game feel alive in ways that went beyond mechanics. As Minecraft has grown and evolved, Herobrine has grown with it. New generations of players continue to hear his name, see his glowing eyes in fan art, and wonder whether the stories are true. For some, he is a figure of fear. For others, he is simply a curiosity, a puzzle piece in the vast world of the game. For many more, he is a symbol of nostalgia, a reminder of the days when everything about Minecraft felt new and unknown. In this way, Herobrine has become more than a character. He has become a memory, a shared piece of childhood for millions of people around the world. Even now, more than a decade since the first whispers of his existence, players continue to stage encounters, build mods, and share videos about him. His image appears in countless forms: a shadowy figure in a cave, a watchful presence on a hill, a tragic brother of Steve wandering alone. Each version keeps the story alive, ensuring that it never ends. And perhaps that is the point. Herobrine's story was never meant to end. It was meant to evolve, to shift, to move forward with each new telling. In the end, whether or not Herobrine exists in the game is almost irrelevant. What matters is that he exists in the imagination, in the conversations, and in the collective culture of players. He is as real as we allow him to be, and in that sense, he is very real indeed. He represents the unknown in a world defined by discovery, the ghost in a world built of blocks. He is the reminder that even in games where everything can be measured and mined, there is always room for wonder. And so, as you drift into sleep, imagine a quiet Minecraft world. The sun sets, painting the blocky sky in shades of orange and purple. The animals settle, the villagers retreat into their homes, and the first stars appear above. In the distance, a forest sways gently in the pixelated breeze. And perhaps, just at the edge of your vision, a figure stands silent, watchful, eyes glowing faintly in the dark. Is he real? Is he imagined? It doesn't matter. What matters is the feeling, the mystery, the story that continues. That is Herobrine's gift, and it is why his legend will never fade. So let the thought of him linger as you close your eyes, not as something to fear, but as a gentle reminder of the stories we share and the worlds we create together. Rest well, knowing that somewhere, in the infinite possibilities of Minecraft and in the boundless creativity of its players, Herobrine is still wandering, still watching, still waiting to be remembered.